We should start soon. Let me ask our city clerk. We have a quorum and she's ready.
Yes, we are. I do not see Councilmember Mosca. Do you want me to go ahead and start without him?
Yes, please.
Okay, give me just one moment to get the recording started. Okay, we are ready to go whenever you are, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. Good to see you. This is the regular meeting of the Encinitas City Council. It is 6 p.m. on Wednesday, June 8, 2022. May we please have a roll call?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Hinsey?
Here.
Councilmember Kranz?
Here.
Councilmember Lyons?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Mosca, I do not, I'm just double checking, I do not see present. And we will note when he arrives. And Mayor Blakespear.
Here.
Record will show that all members are present with the exception of Deputy Mayor Mosca.
Okay, thank you. Well, I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. So our first proclamation is for National Gun Violence Awareness Day. I'm not sure if there's anyone on to accept that at this moment. Is there? If not, we'll go to the second one first, the Pride one. I'm not seeing anybody for gun violence, but maybe they'll come in the next couple minutes. So we're going, yeah, City Clerk, did you want to say something?
Oh, no, I was looking, I don't see anyone on the attendees or the panelists, but I'll keep a lookout.
Okay, thank you. So we will go to the second one, 4B, which is Proclamation declaring June as Pride Month. And I am excited that we have Lisa Nava here, and I will also put on my mayor's rainbow sash. So I'm going to read you a proclamation and then ceremonially hand it to you. And then I'll let you say a few words, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So as we celebrate and declare June as Pride Month in Encinitas, we are reminded that this June we stand with the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community in our own city as they declare their own pride in who they are and who they love. Whereas, as the city of Encinitas has a diverse lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community, and it is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, and equality for all people in the community. And whereas many of the residents, students, employees, and business owners within the city of Encinitas who contribute greatly to the enrichment of our city are part of the LGBTQ community. And whereas, though there has been a remarkable progress towards equality in recent years, members of the LGBTQ community in the United States and around the world still face an unacceptable level of discrimination and violence. And therefore, it is important for cities, such as the city of Encinitas, to stand up and show support for those affected. And whereas our nation was founded on the principle of equal rights for all people, but the fulfillment of this promise has been long in coming for many Americans. And whereas some of the most inspiring moments in our history have arisen from civil rights movements that have sought to bring marginalized communities to the mainstream of American society. And whereas the North County LGBTQ Resource Center, whose mission is to serve and empower the diverse LGBTQ community of North San Diego County, has been open for 11 years. And whereas the annual Pride by the Beach Festival is on June 11, 2022 at noon and is recognized as a free community event. And whereas, this is the last whereas, the North County LGBTQ Resource Center was founded in 2008 along with its North County Pride, which is also Pride by the Beach, and has been an advocate for equality and inclusiveness while providing valuable support and life-saving services in all of the North County San Diego region. So therefore be it resolved that I, Catherine Blakespear, Mayor of the City of Encinitas, and the City Council of the City of Encinitas, on behalf of all residents of the City of Encinitas, do hereby proclaim the month of June as LGBTQ Pride Month in the City of Encinitas, and invite everyone to respect, honor, and celebrate our diverse community and to continue building a culture of inclusiveness and acceptance for the LGBTQ community. And also I'll note that we raised the rainbow flag on the very first day of the month, which was an exciting thing to do. And we were proud to do that and be involved. So I'm going to hand you this now, Lisa.
Okay, ready.
ceremonially handing.
I'll take the-
Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I'd love to say a few words. First of all, it's very much an honor to be here with my city council members. I thank each one of you for your part in continuing to be progressive in leading in our North County region. I apologize also for not being at the flag raising. I got the dates mixed up. So there's a lot of dates in my head. But more importantly, the proclamation is not a small act for a city and a council to do. So I really want to recognize that is an act of leading. When throughout our country, we have over 135 laws that are
I'm not hearing her.
Lisa, if you can hear us, you have frozen your audio and your video.
We lost her, it looks like. It's always very unclear at the beginning who it is, right? If it's yourself or if it's the other person.
Yeah, we'll give it.
Yeah, should we give her another minute to log back in so she
Yeah,
can finish it?
I was wondering if she was going to try and log back in. We can give her a minute here. And then I don't see anyone in panelists for the gun violence proclamation. And I'm not sure of all the names in attendees.
I'll accept it for them since I'm wearing orange on their behalf.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll take off my pride sash and I'll put my orange Mayors Against Illegal Guns pin on, and I'll hand it to Councilmember Krantz because he's wearing orange. And if Lisa comes back on and wants to say a few more words, we'll hand it back to her. But okay, so I'm going to read this proclamation for the next item that we have on our agenda. So this is for National Gun Violence Awareness Day. So whereas the city of Encinitas has a strong reputation for public safety, a priority supported by all citizens of this city and strongly exemplified by the actions of all council members. And whereas all constitutionally protected rights come with commensurate responsibilities. And whereas there are more than 40,000 gun deaths each year, there are 111 deaths from gun violence each day. 15 children and teens die every day from gun violence in America. 1,845 children under 17 die each year from gun violence. Gun violence has actually now become the #1 killer of children, surpassing car accidents for the first time in decades. Whereas June 2nd is the birthday of Hadia Pendleton, a teenager who was shot and killed on the south side of Chicago just 1 week after performing at President Obama's inauguration. What started as an effort by her friends to honor her memory has turned into a nationwide movement to raise awareness of all victims and survivors of gun violence. Whereas June 2nd is a nationally recognized Gun Violence Awareness Day and is supported by such distinguished local and national figures as Tony Hawk, Julianne Moore, Katie Couric, and others, as well as over 86 organizations such as the YMCA, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the National Parent-Teacher Association, the American Psychological Association, and Sandy Hook Promise, to mention a few. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Catherine Blakespear, Mayor of the City of Encinitas, along with all Encinitas City Council members, do hereby proclaim June 2nd, 2022 to be Gun Violence Awareness Day in the City of Encinitas. We join others in bringing awareness to the effects gun violence has on all citizens. So I will hand this to you, Councilman Krantz. Would you like to say any words? I'm glad you're wearing orange today. That's great.
Yes, thank you. And I think everybody's pretty well aware of how important elevating the issue of addressing gun violence is, especially with what's happened in Uvalde, Texas, and Philadelphia, and the Buffalo. The list just continues to grow. And so it's my hope that our leaders in Washington, D.C. can take some action to make it a little more difficult for people to get their hands on weapons of war and creating mayhem constantly. So for those people who are dedicated to raising the awareness that are members of our community, I want to tell you that I really appreciate what you're doing, and that I pledge to continue also to elevate this issue. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Krantz. That was very well stated. Okay, I don't see anybody else on this item or the Pride item. So I think our next item is oral communications.
Mayor, did you want me to see if anyone wanted to speak on the presentations?
Yes, definitely. Please
Yes.
do.
Please put your hand down and only raise your hand if you're interested in speaking regarding the two proclamations, the gun violence awareness and June as Pride Month. So if you raise your hand if you're interested in speaking on those items. Okay, it doesn't look like there's anyone on that item, so that takes us to oral communications. So if you want to speak on oral communications, and again, oral communications is to speak on items that are not listed on the agenda. So please raise your hand. You do have 3 minutes. When I call your name, please make sure that you do unmute your microphone. And again, you have 3 minutes. The first speaker is Anthony Bona.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. My name's Anthony Bona, and I'm a resident of Carlsbad, California. So you might ask, why would a guy from Carlsbad call into Encinitas City Council? It's a good question. I'm just a regular guy. Carlsbad, in fact, you could check me out on YouTube at Regular Guy in Carlsbad on YouTube. Ms. Blakespear, these comments are directed to you. It's widely known that you're a good friend, at least you contributed, according to the Campaign 460 forms, to Corey Schumacher's campaign. Corey Schumacher lied against me because she didn't like my public comments. In fact, she said she felt uncomfortable, but you contributed still. She filed a temporary restraining order using false statements, Ms. Blakespear. A judge ruled in my favor. She saw through the lies that Corey Schumacher was trying to perpetuate. Ms. Blakespear, the First Amendment is very important to everyone, not just Encinitas residents, everyone. So I hope that you understand, Ms. Blakespear. And by the way, if you don't, then you might get ready to be sued. I'll stand by and help anyone who feels you, Ms. Blakespear, took their First Amendment rights away. And by the way, Krantz, Masha, Hintz, in my opinion, you represent everything against the First Amendment by your actions. You block Facebook users, and these actions confirm this. So to all my friends in Encinitas, keep pressing this issue. Our First Amendment rights are critical. I stood up to the evil in Carlsbad. Now you in Encinitas, you need to do the same against a Corey Schumacher surrogate, Kathy Blakespear. Thank you. Have a good night.
Next speaker is Becky Rapp.
Good evening, Mayor Blakespear and City Council members. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a concerned parent and public health educator coming to speak to you tonight as we are on the verge of having marijuana storefronts in Encinitas. I'd like to bring to your attention an article out of the Wall Street Journal this week correlating marijuana use, especially high concentrated THC marijuana products, and violence. This highly important information has been given much needed educational coverage via several news programs, and politicians are listening. The article states that the public needs an honest discussion of marijuana's social and public health risks, which include mental health problems resulting in violence. Studies show that the risk of perpetrating violence was more than twice as high for young adults who used marijuana. Kevin Sabet, former drug policy advisor to the Obama administration, stated, "Reports confirm that marijuana poses a significant health risk, especially to our children. This is a problem driven by legalization and the sale of high-potency products that get in the hands of young people." I would strongly encourage you to take a close look at how marijuana businesses will negatively impact our city, especially our young people. I'd like to ask you to consider if the city has adequate plans for protection to safeguard our children. Parents would like you to focus on eliminating the potential threat of marijuana billboards and advertising that attract youth, and enact frequent code enforcement policies, including minor decoy operations by the police department that focuses on sales to minors. Safeguards are crucial to the safety of our young. Thank you.
Next speaker is Rachel Graves.
Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I don't know how to see everybody. There we go. Before I start counting my minutes, can we respectfully remove the guy who's trying to ruin my hometown, Randy Goodson, from the dais? I'm pretty irritated by that, actually. Yes, no?
I don't see him. I mean, I think there are a lot of
Well, I
people.
do. Okay, I only see you guys, Kathy, and him. Pretty weird. Didn't ever see this before. Okay. I was happy to see Anthony Bona here tonight because my name's Rachel Graves, and I also am one of the victims of Blake Spears' failure to uphold her oath of office. But on a different topic, I'm here for a third time to ask why we are here having Zoom meetings where people like Lisa Nava can't even communicate with you. Pam Antill's fake excuse to hold telephonic meetings was based on lies. Cal OSHA confirmed that denying us public in-person meetings due to a COVID outbreak was baseless. All 7 of you have been aware of this now for 3 weeks. Why have you not reversed this decision to deny us our right to have meetings? After being lied to twice, I finally found out that you all knew that there were 3 COVID cases at City Hall the morning of May 11th. At approximately 11:20 a.m., the entire City Hall staff was sent a memo. 7 hours later, after constituting an outbreak in the council chambers, you all sat there on the dais with no masks on, not socially distanced, and dozens of unsuspecting citizens came to view the council meeting and to speak at the council meeting, unaware that they were being exposed to an outbreak zone. Why, if it's such an emergency that we can't be in the council chambers tonight, did you fail to protect the citizens in the council chambers that night? Thank you.
Next speaker is Kelly McCormick.
I'm sorry, thank you. Can you hear me this time?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I had a misfire the first time. This is Kelly McCormick. I'm a public health educator. I recently attended a presentation by the International Academy on the science and impact of cannabis, exploring some of the myths and truths about marijuana. I would like to share some of that information with you. While the public is barraged with claims that marijuana is the answer for everything that ails you, these claims are based more in fantasy than reality, the product of a marketing department, not rigorous scientific study. Consider the position statements from more than half a dozen medical societies who recognized the need to push back against the false messaging. These groups include the American Academy of Ophthalmology, the American Glaucoma Society, the American Academy of Neurology, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, the American Heart Association, and the American Society of Addiction Medicine. Marijuana-related visits to hospital emergency departments in San Diego County have increased dramatically, which is not only a personal crisis for the patients and their families, but also impacts first responders, the public healthcare system, and the taxpayers who foot the bill. Marijuana is known to cause cardiovascular damage to users, making them more susceptible to heart attacks and stroke. And the negative mental health outcomes have been well documented across numerous studies, including an increased likelihood of depression, paranoia, cannabis-induced psychosis, and suicidal thoughts and suicide attempts. It's buyer beware, and unfortunately, real damage is being done by these false messages. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Glenn Johnson.
Start video. Gosh, Zoom is clunkier than in-face meetings. I really wish we could go back to them. I'd like to mention that after last night's election, the mayor of our city has been selected to run for the state Senate seat, and I'd like to congratulate her on this. This has been a huge effort to get into this position. And I hope, Catherine and everyone, that bygones will be bygones in some of the past conflicts, and that you can go on to Sacramento and do the best to represent our coastal communities. This is sincere from my heart, and I know there's been conflicts here, and I've disagreed with many of the things you've done, but you are now headed to Sacramento for us and take good care of us. We still want to preserve the coastal character of our community. We want to prevent high-rise buildings and over construction in Encinitas and ensure a good life for all of our citizens and residents. But thank you, Catherine.
Are there any other individuals? This is your last chance if you want to speak on oral communications to raise your hand. Mayor, that does conclude oral communications.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to the public speakers tonight. Do we have a report from closed session for Tarquin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. City Council and Joint City Council and San Diego Water District met in closed session at approximately 4 p.m. We have recessed out of closed session and there was no reportable action.
Okay, thank you. What about changes to the agenda, City Clerk?
There are no changes to the posted agenda. And then moving to the consent calendar for the public, if you want to speak on any of the items listed on the consent calendar, which is approval to waive full reading of text of ordinances, approval of the minutes, and approval of the warrants list, please raise your hand at this time. And no one is raising their hand, Mayor?
Okay, I'd entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar. Mrs.
I'll second.
Lyons.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
Okay, Councilmember Hensy,
Yes.
Councilmember Kranz,
Yes,
Councilmember Lyons,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca is currently absent, and Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously with Deputy Mayor Mosca absent.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have item 10A, which is our ghost gun ordinance introduction. So if you want to speak on this item, you can go ahead and put your hand up as the public comments begin, and we'll hand it over to the city staff.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Jennifer Campbell, Assistant City Manager. I also have with me tonight Captain of the Sheriff's North County Station, Dustin Lopez, as well as Tarquin Preziosi, our City Attorney, who helped draft the ordinance. So tonight we bring an ordinance amending and adding sections to the Encinitas Municipal Code related to non-serialized, unfinished firearm frames or receivers and non-serialized firearms. There is currently state and federal law that does affect firearms and parts that need to go ahead and have a serial number and that are registered. There has also been additional legislation in California to regulate the sale of unfinished firearms and frames as well. However, some of that legislation has not yet taken place. Most of the legislation revolves around making sure that the parts are bought in face-to-face transactions. Vendors must keep a record of the buyer's and the transferee's information, including name, address, telephone number, date of birth, along with the brand number and precursor parts. And the vendor must verify with the Department of Justice that the individual is authorized to purchase the precursor parts. On January 25th, the San Diego County Board of Supervisors passed an ordinance adding a new chapter to their code relating to non-serialized firearms, non-serialized unfinished frames and receivers, and safe storage. However, that ordinance took place in the unincorporated areas of the county. To begin, a ghost gun is a firearm that's constructed using unfinished firearm parts, including unfinished frames or receivers, which house the operating parts of the firing mechanism of a gun. So basically, through these parts, you are able to make a gun that's actually useful and that can be used, whether for good or for bad. According to the Sheriff's Department, between January and November of 2021, 203 self-assembled and self-manufactured firearms have been seized, and that's approximately 7.3% of all seizure of firearms. So ghost gun seizures have been up, and we have Captain Lopez if there's any questions regarding that. This ordinance is necessary in order to eliminate non-serialized and untraceable firearms. One of the things that people can do when buying these ghost guns is that they don't have to go through the required background check. And that makes it easier for people who, let's say, have committed a felony, might have a restraining order that would otherwise not be able to buy that type of firearm. So in order to keep our community safe, we do recommend passing this ordinance. And what the ordinance would do is make it unlawful for any person to possess, purchase, transport, or receive any unfinished firearm, frame, or receiver unless that frame or receiver is imprinted with a serial number issued and that firearm or receiver by the federal firearms importer or manufacturer. So it basically means that the ghost guns have to go through a manufacturer, the seller, it has to have a serial number, it has to be registered, we have to know who the owner is, and there needs to be a background check. So tonight in front of you, we're introducing ordinance number 2022-08, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Encinitas, California, amending chapter 9.30 firearms to add sections 9.30.030 and 9.30.040 to the Encinitas Municipal Code relating to non-serialized unfinished firearm frames or receivers and non-serialized firearms. We're here for any questions if you have those.
And again, to all the attendees, if you want to speak on this item, please raise your hand. This is now time for public comment. And I do not see anyone raising their hand for this item, Mayor.
Okay. Well, thank you for introducing this. This was directed by the council. And I wanted to just ask our sheriff's captain what he's seeing since, in the last several months throughout the county. I know this was originally a suggestion from the County Board of Supervisors and the City of San Diego. Both law enforcement agencies, of course, the Sheriff's Department, were saying that they're seeing a huge number of ghost guns. And I just was wondering, in this north coastal area, if you're seeing the same thing, or what's your perception of what's happening?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My perception is there is an extreme uptick on, homemade or manufactured ghost guns. This all started, approximately about 4 years ago, when the 3D printers became really popular with printing the lowers of the guns, and then people realized they could just assemble by buying parts online and stuff like that. I think the deputy mayor really summed it up with the violence that we're seeing nationwide, the violence we're seeing in school. I think this ordinance is great as a stopgap up until the time that the state law takes place in July. Obviously, the state passed a law, but it did not take effect until July of 23. So I definitely think that this type of ordinances are a great stopgap. Obviously, the County Board of Supervisors passed their ordinance, but it only covered, the unincorporated areas. It did not cover incorporated cities. So cities passing individual items like this, I think, is a very good thing and supportive of gun violence.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I think it's really important that we do everything we can to keep our residents safe. And there's no question that, in California, apparently, in California, we have a lot more ghost guns because it's actually harder to buy guns because we have background checks and red flag laws and a lot of things that have resulted in people in California being less likely to die of gun violence than in other states, statistically. And we're on the forefront in California, jurisdictions and the state, of passing laws that try to keep communities safe by making sure that guns don't get into the wrong hands. And so this is an example of that, where you don't see this kind of thing in other states to this level. And so cities like Encinitas are really leading the way in passing ordinances like this. And like you said, the fact that the County Board of Supervisors covers their jurisdiction is in the unincorporated areas, but incorporated cities who contract with the sheriff, it only makes sense that we would have the same regulations and enforcement and commitment to safety. So I'm really happy about the fact that this has come back to us, and I think it shows our leadership in an area that's particularly important to us and also to our community members and to law enforcement, to make sure that we maintain that commitment to public safety, which is the highest value. So thank you for the information that you shared, Captain Lopez. Councilmember Lyons, do you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Captain Lopez, for that. Just if you could help educate me a little bit, Captain Lopez, I see that this would be a violation that constitutes a misdemeanor. Is that the typical approach for this violation? And are there any protocols for repeat violations?
To answer your first question, that is typical protocol. The state law is also a misdemeanor that goes into effect in 2020 or July of 23. But there's no enhancements currently on that. So they would be current, same violations of a misdemeanor. There's no enhancement for a second time violation.
Councilmember Lyons, if I could clarify,
yes.
The maximum violation for a violation of a city ordinance is a misdemeanor, punishable by 6 months in jail and or $1,000 fine.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Thank you both.
Thank you. Councilmember Krantz.
Yes, thank you. And do these ghost guns qualify as a weapon under the, a felon in possession of a weapon?
Is that question for me, Deputy Mayor?
Either one, either the attorney or the captain.
Yes, it does. It does constitute as a weapon as far as a felon in possession of a firearm. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Which is a felony crime.
Right. Well, I would move approval. And I don't know if we need to read the resolution number and such, but
I don't think we do. I'll second it. Yeah, I think it's. I just had one other question though. When we passed our safe storage ordinance in Encinitas, my understanding was that the way that's enforced is almost always when there's another law enforcement problem and you would be inside of someone's house and then you would see all these guns that were not being stored properly. Is that the same? how do you see this ordinance being enforced, or where is it most common that you realize that someone is using or owning a ghost gun?
Is that question for you, Mayor?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Usually we find these violations mainly on traffic stops, or these violations where basically, the person's contacted and they have it, let's say, in possession on their person or in a backpack or, in a public place. That's where we've been contacting the most. I can give you some examples. There was a call to a hotel, months ago. Basically, the deputies responded to the hotel and they contacted the citizen. When he opened the door, they could see that he had a gun visible in his waistband, and basically it was a ghost gun, which is unenforceable at this point in time because they're legally allowed to possess the firearm. So this obviously put the stopgap in place. It would allow us to make the arrest for a misdemeanor. So it's usually not within a house that we would contact somebody. This is usually somebody in public. And I would say probably there's a statistic out this morning that says 35% of guns that are seized by law enforcement are seized on traffic stops.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for being here tonight. And I think, Councilmember Krantz, do you have another comment? No? Okay. So there's a motion and a second. So let's go ahead and vote.
Okay, and again, just for the public, this is to introduce ordinance number 2022-08, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Encinitas, California, amending Chapter 9.30 firearms to add sections 9.30.030 and 9.30.040 to the Encinitas Municipal Code relating to non-serialized unfinished firearm frames or receivers and non-serialized firearms. Councilmember Hensy?
Yes.
Councilmember Krantz?
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca is absent, and Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously with Deputy Mayor
I'm
Mosca.
still at work. I'm going to be in a meeting till 10 or 11 tonight, I think.
Who that
Yeah,
is.
I told you that. Well, maybe sooner. It's
There we go. He just muted.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Great. Well, we'll move on from that item. Now we have item 10B. And I think this is being handled by the city clerk, right?
Yes,
This is,
Thanks, Mayor.
yes. Well, you very rarely have items before
I
the city
know,
council.
I
This
know. And so this item is item 10B. For the public, if you want to speak on this item, please raise your hand. After my presentation, then we will call you. So the item before you is to consider confirming the appointment of Robert Prendergast to the Planning Commission as the Olivenhain representative to fill an unscheduled vacancy with a term ending March 1st, 2023. At the May 25th City Council meeting, the City Council did vote to appoint Robert Prendergast to the Planning Commission as the Olivenhain representative. After the appointment, there were concerns raised regarding Municipal Code Section 2.30.020D, which states appointees to any city commission will not be selected from among members currently serving on any other city commission. Prior interpretation of this section was understood to reflect that commission members could not serve on more than one commission simultaneously. As a result, the past practice has been that a sitting commissioner could be considered for appointment to another commissioner, but if appointed to an additional commission, they would have to resign immediately from the seated commission. Hope that makes sense. So on May 29th, 2022, Mr. Prendergast did complete a Form 700 leaving office statement for the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission. And then he did also submit his formal resignation from that commission on June 2nd, 2022. So in an abundance of caution, Mr. Prendergast has not been participating in Planning Commission meetings and will not participate in those meetings unless and until he is reconfirmed by the City Council. So tonight, the council is to consider appointing Mr. Prendergast and also consider directing staff to bring back municipal code changes to clarify commission appointments and potential changes as deemed necessary after discussion. And I'm available to answer any questions and answer questions after we hear from the public.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lyons, do you have a question? Oh, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I do. And I'm not sure if this is the right time, but what I would like to request on this item is that we bifurcate the two recommended actions and vote on them individually.
That's fine. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Thank you.
And I'll just say that I appreciate the way the staff report was written because it made it clear to me what was happening. And I guess I hadn't, when this all became clear, when I read it, it didn't seem like there was any other way to understand that language. But when you explained it in the staff report, you know, the idea that someone would serve on two commissions at the same time is actually not really an unusual idea, because we frequently have people who apply to like a committee and a commission. And I can see that, you know, we've had an analysis before where we're having a discussion as a council about like, why don't we, this person's already serving in these multiple civic roles, so we want to have a different person on the commission because we don't, you know, we want to allow more people to participate in our local government. So yeah, the idea that we wouldn't choose from among sitting commissioners, you know, that's something that I could understand when it was explained in the staff report. So it was clearly just something that needs more clarification. I just want to say that I would definitely would like to make it possible for people to move from one commission to the other, because sometimes they get experience and they, you know, and that makes them more valuable to a planning commission if they've been on a previous commission. And also they can find a different area of expertise that as the things evolve. And also, not to have them resign before they start the new one, because they don't know if they're going to be appointed yet, right? Because the council has to decide. So we don't want them to resign and in order to apply. Like, they should be able to stay on their existing commission, but then automatically upon being appointed, the resignation would happen. So hopefully that's what, when you were saying that you'll come back with some clarification language, that at least just from my perspective, that's what I would hope to be able to see.
And Mayor, that's a good point, because when I did additional research just looking this whole process up. And in 2011, this situation did arise and an application was deemed ineligible because it was a sitting commissioner. Then, and when they were talking about, when they were interviewing the applicants at that time, then it was determined that the sitting commissioner could apply, but that they would have to resign before appointment. And then when the council was discussing it, the concern was, well, then that assumes if the commissioner resigns, it assumes or could present, it could appear that they know that they have 3 votes. So it made it complicated. They just said they didn't want to have the perception of a Brown Act violation. And then if they didn't get appointed, then do they rescind their resignation? So there was that conversation in 2011.
Okay, so when you come back, you'll just clarify this part. Yeah, and we'll hear the public comments. So I'm sure that there might be others who want to weigh in on things, but I'm glad you clarified that. Yeah, that's all very messy, rescinding a resignation. Okay, do we have public comments?
We do. The first comment is Amy McCord.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. There are quite a few citizens who are astounded that you are creating an ordinance to modify municipal code in order to retroactively make your appointment of Bob Prendergrass legal. You had 2 other qualified candidates who would not have required you to make an illegal appointment. We have a large enough pool of candidates that you should not have to rob from any commissions to fill other positions. I do not approve of this ordinance change. Thank you.
Next speaker is Glenn Johnson.
There, I'm a member of the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission, and I'm concerned that when members are cherry picked to go to other commissions, it disrupts our operation. And it takes time for us to bring a new member up to speed. We're talking about a delay of maybe 3 months here. And I was under the impression that members were there for as long as their term allowed. So I'd like some clarification on this. Why are we being cherry picked?
Next speaker is Dan Vaughn. And while Dan's getting ready, I'll please note that Joe Mosca, Deputy Mayor Mosca, has joined the meeting.
Okay, am I here?
There you go.
I just want to ask the question if this is a proper cure. It seems that the appointment of Bob was made when he was a sitting commissioner on traffic safety. You've now decided to have a reappointment or a reconsideration, whatever the act is today, which isn't something that's spelled out in EMC code. EMC code requires that you solicit applications and have an appropriate waiting period. And it doesn't appear that that's been done ahead of today's action. So I question if you're properly appointing him by reaffirming a previous statement. Thank you.
Next speaker is Cindy Cremona.
Thank you, Kathy. Cindy Cremona, Lucadia, candidate for mayor of Encinitas. Mayor and council, your appointment of Robert Prendergast to the Planning Commission has smashed open a hornet's nest of questions about laws intended to prevent conflicts and ensure fair play. On May 25th, when you appointed Mr. Prendergast to the Planning Commission, he was actively serving on the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission. He did not resign until June 2nd. That means you ran afoul of the Encinitas Municipal Code. Paragraph D of section 2.30.020 is crystal clear. Appointees to any city commission will not be selected from among members currently serving on any other city commission. How did you not know this? How is it okay to fire the former Alevenheim Planning Commissioner for political reasons and then violate the municipal code to install his replacement? Councilman Kranz told the Coast News, quote, "The role of the Planning Commission is too important, and if we have the best qualified person on another commission, we wouldn't want to limit our ability to make that appointment," unquote. Something really stinks here. It goes right to your pattern of handpicking members from your insiders club to fill powerful positions and running roughshod over the rules to get them there. A dark cloud has formed over Mr. Prendergast's appointment. I urge him to resign immediately from the Planning Commission. He should distance himself from the freewheeling council that appointed him and reapply in March. The mayor and council's brinkmanship created the Alevenheim vacancy in a rush to rewrite the rules. Do the right thing. Fill the vacancy with an eligible applicant, reject the Prendergast application, and give him the apology he deserves. Thank you.
Next speaker is Rachel Graves.
Hi again. Nowhere in the code does it allow you to change the code after an appointment to accommodate your misbehavior. Along with all the lies that we've seen over the last 3 weeks, City Manager Pam Antle also broke the law last week. Municipal Code 24070 says that her first duty, quote, shall be to enforce all laws and ordinances of the city. As a council, you need to hold her accountable. This code does not use the words Kathy Hollywood used, quote, simultaneously. It actually just says appointees to any city commission will not be selected from among members currently serving in another city commission. And like Blakespeare said, it is not clearly just that we need some clarification. No, it's very clear words. It's clear words a third grader would know. Conversations in 2011 that Kathy Hollywood brought up, sorry, I can't see everybody, that Kathy Hollywood brought up that demonstrated that there was some conflict with this should have been very clear in the mind of you, Tony, when you admit to having approved this ordinance in 2013 with these very, very clear words and simple sentences. And the other question I'd like to know is why during the meeting when Joy asked a very good question and asked the city attorney to clarify and give us some guidance on what would make an applicant a viable applicant, why did our attorney fail us in allowing Joe Mosca to silence him just as he was about to tell council what deems an applicant ineligible? None of you should allow Joe Mosca to silence Joy Lines and not allow the public to listen to the attorney. Also, I was hoping, I came to the Planning Commission last week hoping that Prendergast would be there so I could address him, but I was hoping he'd be a little bit more honorable than he's been. He hasn't declared his large donation to Blakespeare's Senate campaign. He probably knew that he couldn't apply for the position since it's very clear in the code. But how can we trust Prendergast to apply our city code on the Planning Commission when he has manipulated it to be on the committee in the first place? You cannot expect someone to abide by the code when they're breaking it to be the person to enforce it. And lastly, if you do change the code to match your misbehavior, it should not apply to just commissions. For the same reasons that you want to change the code, you should apply it to boards and committees as well. Thank you.
And one last call for any speakers. Please raise your hand. Let me just double check here. Scroll down. There are no more speakers on this item, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Krantz.
Thank you. Yes, it's unfortunate that we have, run into this situation. I would like to correct the record that, in fact, the changes to the ordinance that we made related to service on commissions in 2013 was that we implemented a term limit so that we could allow for more people from our community to serve in these voluntary positions. And I think that that's probably the most important issue to me, is that we have a very generous community of professionals who have a lot to offer in their service on these commissions. And, to suggest that someone is dishonorable because they submitted an application for an opportunity to serve on the Planning Commission is just pretty ridiculous. And I really very much appreciate everyone who applies. In fact, I did discover that prior, that the 2011 situation involved former council member Lisa Schaefer, who had applied to be on the Environmental Commission, and an arts commissioner was appointed to that vacancy, and she was not. And it was, the current ordinance was in place at that time. So We frankly just had an opportunity to take one of our outstanding volunteers, June Hansberger, who had applied to serve on our environmental commission. And she's eminently qualified for that because she is a biology teacher in high school, knows her science. But in the meantime, she's also very active in mobility issues. And so when the opportunity to represent Leucadia on the Mobility Commission came up, she applied for that as well. And there were no questions about this particular ordinance at that time because it had become a common practice. And it's the reality is that the code is applied by our quite capable city staff, and our city clerk is one of the best. And so when we were considering these applications, I didn't think twice, and I frankly thought that Mr. Prendergast was the best qualified, so I supported him, and I will continue to support him now. The one question that I would have for the city attorney has to do with this notion of whether these steps that we're taking tonight to reconsider are going to suffice, or whether we need to go back to square one and re-notice this position.
Thank you, Councilmember Kranz. It's not necessary to go back to square one. Simply appointing Mr. Pendergast tonight, since he is no longer a sitting commissioner on the Mobility and Traffic Committee, will suffice.
Okay, very good. So I would move approval of the appointment of Bob Prendergast to the Representative Liebenhain on the Planning Commission.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. I'll call on my colleagues for their comments too. Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you. I really wanted to take the opportunity to reinforce what Councilmember Kranz was saying. While I served for 2 terms on the Environmental Commission, there were at least 3 commissioners who moved from commission to commission. So I think it's been our practice that that is what is typical. That's how we practiced. And I do believe too, it's even though the words might seem very obvious of how we've articulated this requirement, I think because it doesn't say shall and it says can, has a little bit different weight as far as how you legally understand the meaning of the terms in the policy. So I just wanted to reinforce that from my perspective, having been a commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hinsey.
Thank you. Yeah, so all I wanted to add is that I like the idea that we would be able to appoint commissioners between commissions, because serving on one commission gives them the opportunity to learn how things work. So for example, when June Hansberger was on the Environmental Commission, she was able to achieve a lot of things on behalf of the city, including our lighter than air balloon ban that she worked so hard on. So by learning how things work and having these accomplishments, they become a really great candidate for another commission that might be more in line with their passions. So I don't want us to be able to eliminate that possibility for people who are willing to serve. And then the other point that I think is important to make is that we do have some task forces and some committees that it is important to, we've used this term, to cross-pollinate between our city's commissions and these efforts underway. And one recent example is our El Camino Real specific plan task force, in which it's of value to that task force to have somebody from the Planning Commission and the Mobility Commission serve in those roles, because they're able to weigh in on both parts of that job. So I am supportive of making this language more clear in our municipal code. And I will move to approve that second part of the bifurcated action tonight, which is to refine that language and bring it back for us in a way that is consistent with our current practice.
And I'll second that the second motion. But so let's go ahead and vote on the first motion was from Councilmember Kranz, and Councilmember Hinsey seconded it, right?
Yes.
And will you just repeat what that motion is?
And that was to appoint Robert Prendergast to the Planning Commission as the Liebenhain representative.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on that.
Councilmember Hinsey.
Yes.
Councilmember Kranz.
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons.
No.
Deputy Mayor Mosca.
Yes.
And Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously with Councilmember Lyons voting no. And then let me get the new motion, which was Kinsey and Blakespear. And that is to direct staff to bring back changes to the municipal code for council consideration. And that is to allow sitting commissioners to apply for other commission vacancies. And if appointed, the commissioner would automatically be removed from their prior commission appointment, in keeping with the council's desire to prevent dual membership on commissions. Is that
Yes.
accurate? Okay.
That's accurate. Yes.
And then start voting. Councilmember, any more comments? Okay. Councilmember Hensy,
Yes.
Councilmember Crayons,
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca,
Yes.
and Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. And just to be clear for the public, no changes to the municipal code were made this evening.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Now we're on to item 10C. So this is public hearing to reconsider Randy Goodson's appeal of the Planning Commission denial of a design review permit and density bonus permit, and consider an amended design review permit and density bonus application for the demolition of existing single-family homes and accessory structures and construction of a 250-unit apartment development, including a leasing and amenity space, private outdoor recreation space, signage, and grading, stormwater, and landscape improvements. So before I hand it to the staff, I'm just going to go over the procedures for the hearing. Or, City Attorney, did you pop up because you want to say something here? No? Okay. So just a proceed. I'm going to start by having a procedural motion that will allow us to go into the hearing. And then we will have a staff report given. We'll ask council to disclose any other information they have received that is not included in the staff report, and then put preliminary questions. I'll open the public hearing, and then the appellant applicant has 10 minutes. Then we have public speakers for 3 minutes each. And then we have rebuttal by applicant, and then that's typically 5 minutes. And then we have closing the public hearing and council discussion and action. So that's the whole list of, or the run of show, how we're going to go through this. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. And this is a procedural motion to start this, which is a motion that the City Council, 1, reconsider Randy Goodson's appeal of the Planning Commission's denial of a design review permit and density bonus permit, and consider an amended design review permit and density bonus application for 2220, 2228, and 2230 Encinitas Boulevard. And 2, to waive any contrary rules of parliamentary procedure to allow this matter to be heard. So that's a motion, and I would entertain a second on that.
I'll second that.
Okay, so let's go ahead and have a vote, and then we'll go forward with the staff report. I see Anna's already popped up here,
Okay.
assuming.
Councilmember Hensy,
Yes.
Councilmember Crayons,
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca,
Yes.
and Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. So now we move on to staff report given. So I'll hand that to Anna.
Thank you very much. Are you seeing my PowerPoint presentation?
We are. It's nice and large.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Anna Colamusi, Planning Manager for Development Services Department, and I am going to be presenting on the Encinitas Boulevard Apartments. Just a brief overview of the location of the site. It's located along Rancho Santa Fe Road and Encinitas Boulevard Apartments. Surrounding uses are listed here. It's surrounded by single-family residential and commercial development. As you're all aware from previous presentations, it's a housing element site and it has been rezoned to R30 overlay zone. And as mentioned, we are here to reconsider an appeal made by Randy Goodson and to consider an amended application for a density bonus and design review permit. And then I'll briefly go over some background. You may recall the original project included 277 units, with 41 of the units as low income affordability. The project was denied by Planning Commission on August of 2021, and 2 timely appeals were filed by Randy Goodson and a separate one by Encinitas Residents for Responsible Development, also known as ERRD. City Council did take action on the appeals on November 10th, 2021, where the ERRD appeal was denied, the Goodson appeal of the project was denied, and the boundary adjustment was approved. Subsequent to these actions, a settlement agreement through court action was signed on April 14th of 2022, and the applicant then submitted the amended application before you this evening. The amended application includes the demolition of existing structures on the site and the construction of a 250-unit apartment building, including a leasing area, amenity spaces, and site improvements, including grading, parking, and landscaping. This proposed project includes 50 of the units dedicated to affordable levels, and this project has 21 at very low income and 29 at low income, whereas the previous project had them all at low. Just a refresher, the city is required to review the project within R30 overlay zones by right if it does not require a subdivision and includes 20% of the units affordable to lower income households, excluding density bonus units. Review by right means that the project cannot be required to obtain a discretionary permit that would subject the project to review under the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. The proposed project is eligible for by right approval because it is located in the R30 overlay zone. It does not require a subdivision, and it provides over 20% of the base density units as affordable to lower income households. This is another slide that has been seen before, just another refresher of the access to the site is off of a private road, McCain Lane, shown in the purple location as the entrance, and the 2 green, I would call them arrow stars, are the emergency access only points to accommodate the 150-foot hose pull requirements off Rancho Santa Fe Road. All other fire requirements were met for the project site. Under state density bonus law, the applicant may request a density bonus, and they are allowed to request the 250 units. Based upon the percentage of affordable units provided, the applicant is eligible to request 2 concessions. In addition to the concessions, they are able to request waivers. The project does also utilize the reduction of state density bonus law parking, and it requires 305 spaces in the project under state law, and the project is providing 431. So one of the concessions, they're requesting 2 concessions. Again, this is an overview of what has been seen in the previous application, and no change has been made. Pursuant to the Encinitas Municipal Code, a masonry wall is required along projects around the rear and side property lines unless it's separated by higher density residential. So since the property abuts single family residential to the west and the north, a 6-foot masonry wall is required. And this is just an image showing the blue line in which the concession is being requested. Another Encinitas Municipal Code section requires the undergrounding of all utility distribution facilities. And the existing utility lines run along the western property line and cross Encinitas Boulevard, as well as along a portion of the northwestern property line. And then as shown as on the image, the applicant is requesting the concession for the undergrounding of all these utilities. Pursuant to state density bonus law, the city must approve the concession requests unless it can make a finding that either the concession does not result in identifiable and actual cost reductions to provide for the affordable housing costs or for the affordable rents for the targeted units, that it does not have a specific adverse impact upon public health and safety, and that the property is not listed on a California Register of Historic Resources for which there's no feasible method to satisfactorily mitigate or avoid the specific adverse impact without rendering the development of affordable to low and moderate income households, or that it's contrary to state or federal law. The applicant did provide the reasonable documentation, and city hired KMA to perform a study to determine compliance with the density bonus findings. KMA provided a study that identified the requested concessions do reduce the development cost by 4.9%, and that there was no substantial evidence to demonstrate the concession does not result in an identifiable and actual cost reduction. The density bonus waivers being requested, first waiver is to exceed height to allow a maximum height of 60 where approximately 60 feet where 39 feet is required. The second is to allow varying heights, ranging stories from 4 to 6 throughout the several locations on the property. The third is to reduce the private storage unit amount. And then lastly, one that has been added since the last project is that the applicant requests low profile lighting where the illumination of outdoor recreational facilities are prohibited within a Leeuwenhoek. The density bonus waiver findings were made that no evidence was identified to demonstrate the waivers would have an adverse impact to public health and safety. No historic property listed on California Register or Historic Resources are impacted, and it does not violate any state or federal law. The city inclusionary requirements are being met with the project providing 21 very low affordable units. And we did add a condition of approval in the draft resolution requiring that those 21 very low income units be restricted to affordable rates in perpetuity as required by our code. The project did meet all the objective development standards of the R30 zone. The height with the waivers, and then private open space and facade wall plane. The project is in compliance with landscape standards. And the project proposes a total of 92,246 square feet throughout the site, and 232 on-site trees are proposed with a mix of shrubs. Various technical studies were provided, and they're listed here. The studies were reviewed against the housing element environmental assessment and meet all objective standards of the municipal code and the general plan. And any recommendations that were listed and required of these technical studies have been incorporated in the conditions of approval. Next, I'm going to move on to the design of the structure. The proposed project does meet the objective design standards in place at the time of the application. And what I did was show the original application on the top for the next few slides with the proposed amendment below. Some of the key changes to point out include a reduction of 1 story in various locations to reduce the overall bulk and scale of the structure, adding siding and stone material in additional locations, and varying the roof line throughout the project. On this slide, you see the view from Rancho Santa Fe Road, or the east view. The top image is the original application, bottom is the proposed, and the green arrows show the specific location where the modifications were made. The south elevation facing the commercial, no changes were proposed on this side. Then this image is from the western property line, and I have kind of an oval highlight demonstrating the modification area for this elevation. And then you can also see on this one the addition of the materials by adding the addition of the stone. Then the north elevation, and again an oval highlight showing the location of the reduction in story. This also demonstrates the addition of siding and stone to the elevations. And lastly, a street view exhibit that was provided by the applicant. This image depicts one of the locations where stories were removed to reduce that bulk and mass. And so you'll see the top photo is the original application, and they highlight the yellow areas where the story was removed to kind of show the difference there. I did want to point out one recommended condition of approval that's not included in the draft resolution that staff would like to request to be added should the City Council move forward with the approval of the project. It's the recommended condition SCB 15 shown on the screen here, ensures the shielding of lighting fixtures. And I'm happy to read the full one, or we can refer back to it when needed. With that, staff recommends the City Council grant the Goodson appeal and overturn the Planning Commission's denial, approve the amended design review permit and density bonus requests, and adopt resolution number 2022-70 with the recommended additional condition. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Anna, for that great presentation. So now we have the staff, or we have the council to disclose any other information they have received that is not included in the staff report. So I'll ask the city clerk to call on us to disclose that.
Councilmember Hensy?
I have nothing to disclose.
Councilmember Crayons?
I did receive a number of emails, including a flurry of them today from Encinitas residents for responsible development. So I don't know if those are necessary to disclose, but I just did.
Councilmember Lyons?
I have nothing additional to disclose.
Deputy Mayor Mosca?
Nothing beyond what was in the record, and same as Councilmember Kranz, received a lot of emails. I assume everybody received them since they were addressed to the City Council.
And Mayor Blakespear?
Yes, same, and nothing additional. Thank you. Okay, now preliminary questions. So I see no council hands up for preliminary questions. So I will officially now, oh, is that a preliminary question, Councilmember Hensy?
Yeah, just one preliminary question regarding Anna's presentation on page 5 or 25, actually, where it was the design review slide. There's a depiction from Rancho Santa Fe Road, and I just want to clarify, it doesn't include the sidewalk as part of that frontage there, but I just wanted to confirm that that sidewalk will be constructed as part of this project.
That's correct, it is.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so I will now officially open the public hearing. And now we have the appellant with 10 minutes.
Okay, and
up to 10 minutes.
And as the appellant gets ready, if among the attendees, if you wish to speak on this item, go ahead and raise your hand so then we know how many speakers there are going to be. Thank you.
Hello, Madam Mayor and council members and staff. My name is Randy Goodson. I'm the applicant. I appreciate your time to reconsider this amended application. Your staff did an excellent job in presenting the amendments and modifications that we've made to the project. And I'll just, in the interest of time and not being repetitive, I'll just highlight things that staff may not have mentioned. If you can go to the next page, please.
Sorry, it's not letting me move, but give me 1 second. There we go.
Wanted to point out the project is outside of the coastal zone and as your staff mentioned, exempt from CEQA. And the average apartment home size is 930 square feet. And we are building the project to LEED Silver and exceeding the criteria of the city and Levenheim Municipal Water District in so doing. The project is, as staff pointed out, it's now 20% of the total units, more units than we're required to provide. And the affordable units are dispersed throughout the building, and it's throughout different unit types. They have access to all amenities. There's no differentiation within the project between the affordable units and the market rate units. And that includes all the finishes will be the same among all the projects. And as staff pointed out, there has been a reduction throughout many areas of the project that are most visible to by 1 story, including the increased step back or improved step back from Rancho Santa Fe Road. The project includes improved safety measures for Rancho Santa Fe Road by widening Rancho Santa Fe Road half width to add street parking and a sidewalk. And in addition, we are adding a traffic signal at McCain Lane and Encinitas Boulevard, and we'll be interconnecting that signal with the signal at Encinitas Boulevard and Rancho Santa Fe Road to smooth traffic flow. The landscape buffer is very robust, over 230 trees, as your staff mentioned, and the setbacks from the property lines exceed the setbacks that are required. The community has extensive on-site common open space, including the dog park, a dog spa, resident garden, outdoor play area, fruit orchard, barbecues, patios, pool, fitness center, and then lawn and game areas. We have here a number of images to show the design inspiration that we believe will really enhance and provide a beautiful project for the community. And then this shows more of the inspiration for the outdoor areas, the open space areas. As staff mentioned, we have emergency access only off of Rancho Santa Fe Road in the 2 locations shown here with the red arrows. And these locations, I might add, will also provide connectivity to from the project to the sidewalk and vice versa. Here we're moving on to images that are also, it turns out, in the staff report. So I'll just, we can toggle between them if staff can do that, and toggle here between this slide and the next slide. And you'll see the difference between the removal of that top story, which improves this setback from Rancho Santa Fe Road as the building steps more naturally. And then to the next slide, again, I won't belabor this. Your staff did an excellent job of pointing out the changes that we've made. But here, the elevation looking from the northeast is the highlighting the area where the top floor is removed. And this is showing and depicting the area from the northeast with the revised project. And again, here from the northwest elevation from the residents on the west side of the project, you will see where we removed the top floor there. And if you go to, now you'll see here on the west side elevation, there's a dotted line in there that I want to draw your attention to. That dotted line is the existing grade. And so you can see from the existing grade, the building is just over 2 stories with a roof. And as you get closer to the commercial on Rancho Santa Fe Road, it grows to the 4 stories, but the areas right next to the homes that are the closest is the 2 stories that you're seeing there. More images to depict the actual design of the outdoor areas. Previously, we showed you the inspirational images, and these are the designs of the open space amenities for the residents. We really are hopeful that you follow state law and the city's own commitment to the city's housing element and approve this amended application. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. So now the next thing is public speakers. So how many public speakers do we have, City Clerk?
So far I show, oh, let's see, it's going up. So far I show 11.
Okay, well, each one has 3 minutes, so let's go ahead and take them.
Okay, I'm going to call you one at a time. Please remember to unmute your microphone when I do call your name. First speaker is Jim Frost.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Honorable Mayor, Council, and staff. My name is Jim Frost. My family and I live on Avenida Esperanza, the private road cul-de-sac that abuts the Goodson project on McCain Lane to the west. We've lived here since 1986, and we're the first residential building permit issued under the new city of Encinitas. Things have sure changed in Olivenheim, and I want to say, Randy, you've made a good first attempt to mold your project to be more acceptable to the general public, but there's other concerns we have being residents in a fire danger area. We're on the street with 30 homes, but you have to weigh all the safety risks assessments prior to approving the project. No project of this magnitude should be allowed unless all impacts are known. The city was told by Goodson that he was going to build a senior care apartment, not generating much traffic, but it morphed to the tallest building in the city, equivalent to 5 Home Depots. This mega project will destroy the rural character and the historic community known as Olivenheim. It's Catherine's opinion that Olivenheim residents need to take one for the team, as the other communities felt the pain with these R30 projects. So here we are, lawsuit after lawsuit, not getting anywhere. A rush to please Bonta by settling a lawsuit with the developer, but then again, shortchanging the residents who have lived their lives and their future is on the line. Bad decisions, bringing more bad decisions, all at the community's expense and the taxpayers' expense. Once this train leaves the station, there's no turning back. You cannot unring the bell. I urge you to deny the project with so many unforeseen risks. Yes, there are tangible risks to this project. You must properly address and mitigate further danger during wildfire evacuations, and you must weigh how surrounding communities are also going to evacuate. It's your duty as the city council. And just because the fire chief says it's not a problem and our AG is taking that side and doesn't mean it's fact. The Weber and Fitch study concludes there is a risk and there will be evacuation delays from this project given the Santa Ana driven wildfires. These studies have not even included a full-blown traffic study or evacuation delays from surrounding communities. I believe something was sent to you today from our fire analysis from Chuck Weber, and we appreciate you looking over that before you make a final decision. Thank you.
Next speaker is Dan Vaughn.
Yeah, I just want to point out that the city doesn't actually have the authority to reconsider the project. There are no mulligans or do-overs for final decisions. The November action was a final decision. It was a decision on 2 appeals. Encinitas RRDs was one of them, and Goodson's was the other. To take that and reconsider only half of that today is improper, and it takes away Encinitas RRD's rights. This is a new submission under state law. It needs to go to Planning Commission under EMC code. When we would have an opportunity to appeal that decision to the city council and regain standing. To take action today without giving Encinitas RRD standing, to take any action at all after a final decision is contrary to state law. Final means final, not oops, I want to change my mind. And that's with good reason. If the city council changes in November, December, and we have a new city council in, we wouldn't expect the new city council to undo this city council's decisions. It's just not the way the state law works. And this has been true for 80 years in California. Second issue is public safety. Staff tonight has made a finding and has written into the draft resolution that no evidence has been provided that there's a public safety issue. That's simply untrue. You all know the hundreds of pages of evidence, the scores and hundreds of people's personal testimony of their personal impacts. You've heard reports from Rancho Santa Fe Association, Leavenhagen Town Council, Rancho Santa Fe Fire, the San Diego Planning Group, the Leavenhagen Fire Safe Council, and countless other organizations and individuals. You've gotten the Chuck Weber reports from a certified professional. You know that there's evidence in front of you. You have a duty to the citizens of Leavenhagen, Encinitas, and the neighboring communities to weigh the substantial evidence in front of you and to make public safety findings based on the evidence on the ground. That weighing of evidence should be independent of whatever legal challenges might be made to the city's authority to make findings. Findings on this public evidence, on the substantial evidence findings, will be deferred to by judges. Legal findings, they will reconsider and complete. Thank you.
Next speaker is Can Bilsell.
I have a video, I'm sorry, I have a visual. It's called Bill Cell on 10C. I send it to help desk.
Yes, IT.
Thank you very much. So I appreciate Anna Colamussi's presentation, but the architectural renderings that Mr. Goodson has shown, unfortunately, they were inaccurate. He has shown as if this project looks a bit like an orchard or a country retreat. You know that it isn't. There is actually a landscape architect among you, so you know this better. Here, actually, I'm showing the elevation view from Rancho Santa Fe Road of the revised project. The yellow line that you see at the bottom, I just simply highlighted the level of the Rancho Santa Fe Road. Rancho Santa Fe Road. And if you look, basically, you'll see the little gray dots, which are the vehicles that the architect of Mr. Goodson drew. So that is the level of the road. I have also basically highlighted, because it was a bit melting toward the air, basically the roof line, trying to understand the real height of this revised project. So it's very clear that this is still a 6-level mega development. And since you reviewed and rejected this project, very little has changed. And the footprint and the bulk of the project is unlike anything that we've seen before in Encinitas. So since this project is built on a natural hill, which should have been actually protected by the Encinitas code, it will have actually a much greater impact on the Rancho Santa Fe corridor. the public will experience maybe a 20 feet high retaining wall, or maybe even larger than that, and basically very steep slopes, which will basically make the effect of the structure much, much greater on the people experiencing from the main Rancho Santa Fe corridor. Imagine basically a retaining wall or a series of walls of 20 feet, and on top of it, basically a hulking 6-level structure. So what is, of course, not mitigated here, and this is by far the most important, is the impact of this project on wildfire evacuation and emergency safety. The McCain Lane, the only drive for this project, I think you know that there is daycare and preschool serving, according to the owner, as many as 300 little children. It's wrong to add thousands of car trips and toxic emissions near their only playground, and it is wrong to compromise their safety in the case of a fire. Finally, this project has an impact on wildfire evacuation, not only in Encinitas, but on the surrounding unincorporated communities in San Diego County. Fortunately, and we are really grateful for this, the Office of the County Supervisor, Lawson Remmer, has expressed interest in directing county resources to conduct a review of this project's impact on our communities. So please ask the county to conduct a multi-jurisdictional review of fire evacuation safety. And please delay your decision on this project until the San Diego County can conduct a comprehensive review of the impact of this project on wildfire evacuation safety and on the environment. Thank you.
Next speaker is Rick Boyer. Mr. Boyer, you need to unmute your microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Mayor Blakespear and council members, I oppose the approval of this project for many reasons, including all of the ones that have already been articulated by the various speakers, but primarily because of the traffic. The information that the city council is relying upon and the various committees are relying upon to approve this project is inaccurate with regard to the traffic. The CNR trip generation analysis, both the original one that was done when the project was considered for a 283 unit project, as well as the reconfigured 250 unit project, does not take into consideration the existing traffic on McCain Lane. If you read through the CNR trip generation analysis, there is no mention whatsoever of any traffic that currently exists on McCain Lane. And as the last speaker mentioned, there is a preschool that is on the south border of McCain Lane that has as many as 150 car trips, auto trips, 3 times per day, not just once a day, but 3 times per day. So if this project, if the CNR report were to add in the existing traffic on McCain Lane just from this one business, the preschool, the project would be back to the number of average daily trips that that the CNR analysis reported when the project was 283 units. If it was unacceptable then, it should be unacceptable now. And the council should demand that CNR include the existing traffic from the preschool. Not only the parents that are dropping off kids 3 to 4 times per day, but also the staff, which comes and goes during the day. And I actually did have some visual aids. I don't know whether they can be brought up now. There we go. this is the license that the school had to obtain from the California Department of Health Services to operate the facility. And you'll see McCain Lane there on the left, Encinitas Boulevard is at the bottom. The flow of traffic for the preschool starts in Encinitas Boulevard. You can see it towards the right side of the project and down at the bottom. And then it flows up towards the top of the page, makes a hard left, and then stops there to allow kids to be offloaded. And then the cars have to make a left-hand turn onto McCain Lane and back on Encinitas Boulevard. There are 3 to 4 times during the day when the traffic through that roundabout or that pass-through project area on the school is heavy, but the traffic is pretty much going throughout the day as parents are picking up and dropping off their kids. The other area of note is up at the top of the page, you'll see Area A. That's the staff parking for the preschool. As
Mr.
well
Boyer,
as
excuse me, Ms. Boyer, that is your 3 minutes. If you want to just conclude with one final sentence.
if you can pull up the second page of my my visual aid, I would appreciate it. It's a better visualization. It shows a better visualization of, oh, we had it there for a second. Next page, please. There it is. So the preschool is highlighted in yellow. The flow of traffic are the red arrows, and McCain Lane is being the only entrance and exit to this facility. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to see that that's going to be a big traffic problem. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Juliana.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
It's hard to shake a sense of futility when addressing this council. 2 years into this process, we've learned that you show up at these meetings with your minds already made up, your votes already counted. So I want to speak to my fellow Encinitas residents in the audience instead, to say that the biggest betrayal tonight will be when you'll hear these politicians claim that they had no choice but to approve this project. In anticipation of their excuses and self-congratulations, I want to remember how we got here. In 2018, Council granted Mr. Goodson an R30 designation on the assumption that the site would deliver 149 affordable units in the form of a senior living community. In 2019, after meeting behind closed doors with the developer and in full knowledge of his intention to submit a by right density bonus mass housing project, Council modified the municipal code to allow him to bypass environmental review. I was in these chambers when the planning staff gave false reassurances that the project would undergo a public review process, although it was by then established that it would be by right and CEQA exempt. In the last 2 years, Council brushed aside evidence that the site was a steep natural slope that deserved special consideration, ignored the legal imprecisions that plague Goodson's parcels, dismissed a reputable fire expert's findings, and failed to release in time their own expert report that confirmed the inadequate wildfire evacuation in Olivenhain. The most bitter pill to swallow for me, however, is the claim that this project will help us solve the affordable housing crisis in Encinitas. From the 149 units promised, we're down to 50, of which 20 are studios, which will rent just a tad below market rates. If politicians cared to listen, they would know that tenants in need live in complex multi-generational households that have little use for this kind of spaces. Given the extraordinary accommodations this project received, this is simply not enough. It's tempting to feel pessimistic. The historically low turnout in yesterday's election reveals how little faith we have left in politicians. But unless we claim back the political process and find better solutions to our affordable housing crisis, the real winners will remain the speculators and the lawyers. Thank you.
Next speaker is Amy McCord.
Hello, this is Amy McCord. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. For more than 2 years, you have heard from residents of Olivenhain, Rancho Santa Fe, and other communities across Encinitas who oppose the Goodson project. Over 1,500 people signed a petition asking you to analyze the impact of this project on the safety of surrounding communities, especially during wildfire evacuation. Despite our continued urging, no safety study has been done that includes the impact of residents from this project or from adjacent areas who have to evacuate on Rancho Santa Fe Road. Until that's done, projected vehicle counts and evacuation times are invalid. Some of your previous decisions have been based on information that defies logic. For example, that the 1,600 plus daily auto trips generated by the apartment will have no negative impact on traffic, or that the site itself is not in a high fire hazard severity zone and will be built to code, so it is safe and will have no impact on evacuation from Olivenhain. Both defy reason. Regarding evacuation, a respected local fire expert said this about Manchester, quote, "Because of its restricted roadway corridor, exposure to large sections of unmanaged natural vegetative fuel beds with flame front burnover potential and constricted traffic flow rates, Manchester Avenue is not designated as an evacuation route for the Olivenhain community," end quote. And yet, the proposed plan directs over 65% of Olivenhain residents and all those coming from the east to evacuate on this hazardous stretch without an option to go westbound on Encinitas Boulevard, as the apartment residents will do. Several retired fire chiefs and captains have agreed that the evacuation situation alone should be enough to kill the Goodson project. To claim there is no evidence of threat to public safety is a dereliction of duty. You have taken an oath to make public safety your first priority. Your vote tonight will reveal who and what you stand for. Please stop bending laws and start listening to your constituents. Do not approve this revised project. Thank you.
Next speaker is Susan Rappaport.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I want to introduce myself. I'm Susan Ryan Rappaport, and I have some notes to read. At 11 years old, a cancer mom, a lady had cancer in the neighborhood, 2 small children. She had me help her with her children so that she could sleep and get some rest. She taught me how to be safe, keep children safe. I was a Girl Scout. I was a mom. I was a Girl Scout leader. I was a sports mom. I was a preschool teacher. 35 years ago, I opened my first school in Encinitas. I was a lieutenant governor for the Optimist Club. I'm a Rotarian. All of these organizations say and represent honesty, protecting children, doing what is right. The developer did not notify me, yet he could have gotten a phone number. Anybody from the preschool would have called me, never bothered to do it. The traffic study was not accurate. There are children on the playground right near a wrought iron fence who can reach out and touch a car. A gravel truck going down the road not only is noisy, these children are fragile, but gravel could fall off. If there's an accident, this is a small lane. It's right next to the whole length of the preschool. I have a license, and my license was set up with the city's input, the fire department, everybody signed off, the state of California, that I have a use of that easement. I cannot have use if you've got 200, 500, 600 people using this easement. Okay, I have next page, please. Turn the, yeah, this is a fence and you can see the play yard. Very, very dangerous. I cannot imagine anybody would think this would be okay to do. I'm appalled. Did you said in your previously brought up there was no evidence of public health safety? I am sorry. There's evidence right there. Children will be hurt. Their little lungs are full. They're only 2.5 years old. And their lungs, another picture, please. Their lungs are very small and fragile. Keep going, please. One more, keep going. No, back up one. Okay, that's the inside of the school. You have retaining walls for houses. What are you doing with the wrought iron fence that I put in? What about my trees? What are you gonna do about that? I have a license that's issued for 150 children to be parents to be able to use that easement, plus 25 or so teachers. Right now, the school did a wonderful thing. They opened up for people who needed to go to work, the fire department, the teachers who went back to work, anybody who needed an 8-hour program. They curbed their part-time program just to accommodate these children and have less children in the school on purpose. Major financial thing for that.
I'm sorry, that is your 3 minutes.
Okay, do what's right. Please do what's right.
The next speaker is JK.
Oh, sure.
Ms. Rappaport, if you could please turn off your microphone. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi there, it's Geraldine. I just want to say a few things. I wasn't planning on speaking, but it's just so emotional. This project does not directly impact me, but indirectly. I have been listening to council meetings now for 1.5 years, and during this time, I have unfortunately been listening to this nightmare project and the impacts on the community. I listened to the planning committee and the city both deny it. I don't know why the council continues to entertain this project. You are putting the longtime tax-paying senior community in danger. I have seen Mr. Goodson bully and threaten and sue the city. And what kind of person does that? And then somehow got the Attorney General involved. I don't know who does that. Anyway, I was listening to Joe's meeting yesterday at the El Camino corridor, and this Goodson project, it should have been done just like that. I mean, he had members from the commissions, the traffic, the planning, and neighborhood people, and they were all working together on something that is going to impact so many people. And that's how this Goodson project should have been, not one-sided, Mr. Goodson pushing this on those poor people and Levenheim and everybody else. Anyway, I looked at the public comments tonight, and I really didn't see anything positive about this project. I saw lots of 300 things against it. And I believe you can deny a density bonus if it has adverse impacts on the health and safety. And the lady that was just speaking, it sounded like they would be having some adverse effects on at least that community. Anyway, I just do the right thing and just deny this project. Go back to the drawing board. Thank you for listening.
Next speaker is Sherry. Next speaker is Sherry or Cherie. IT, if you can promote her or him.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Sorry. Sherry Sheridan, 27-year resident of Encinitas. I realize the council's in a spot. You're being pressured by our AG to push this project through. I understand that. The whole state is being pressured to put these projects in. We have all demonstrated in this community that we are willing and we want to do something about the affordable housing issue. I have 2 daughters that had to be very creative to be able to live anywhere in California because of the housing costs. But I need you to think about this. If you're really devoted to doing something about the housing project, let's do something that makes sense. Studios does not help lower income people who have kids or who have family. As a council, we have obviously chosen not to put in something that helps senior citizens, which would be 1 or 2 people in a studio or an apartment, more likable, more of a realistic situation. I realize you have this pressure. We have been sued numerous times. If there is this much enthusiasm to take our beach city and develop it en masse, I think you should be demanding more, not less, from these projects. It must be feasible because they all want to do it. Regarding the fire situation, you think you have lawsuits now? You wait until there are women and children dying on Rancho Santa Fe trying to get out. Mayor Blakespear, you are an attorney. You know you don't win in those situations in court when somebody wheels in a burned child. I want you to think about whether you have the guts to stand up to the state, put down what the real criteria is, get more than studios and 50 units out of this 500 square foot area, and think about the safety of the people that are here, because otherwise you should move on to other positions.
Next speaker is Rachel Graves.
Hi. As Dan Vaughn said, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay. As Dan Vaughn said, you will violate the state law if you approve this appeal tonight. Never would I have imagined that at 47 years old, I would have to speak up to protect my mother and father from you in the city of Encinitas, where I grew up, where my mother is a retired city employee and where they've been homeowners my entire life. You intentionally left out the fire escape danger that this project imposes onto Olivenhain and Rancho Santa Fe. And under no circumstances should Olivenhain and our neighbors have to worry for our lives due to your poor decisions. We have had to evacuate numerous times. What will happen the next time a fire roars through? Many of my dear friends in Olivenhain lost their homes years ago. And like the last speaker just said, do you want to see me? I already lost my brother on Rancho Santa Fe Road. Do you want to see me when I lose my mom and dad there? I know you don't want to see my husband when he loses me and my mom and dad. You wouldn't know what to do with yourselves. I dispute the staff finding that, quote, no evidence has been provided indicating that the proposed project would adversely affect health, safety, or the general welfare of the surrounding neighborhood or community. You five know full well that this has an adverse impact on the public health and safety of our community. Do the right thing and deny this project. Thank you.
Next speaker is Glenn Johnson.
Unmute. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'd like to worry about the liability that the city might be picking up if it approves this dangerous project. I have to indicate my personal experience here. When my father retired, he moved into a manufactured home in a community in Northern California named Paradise. And he lived there for a while. By and by, he had to move into a rest home. However, sometime later, the whole community of Paradise, including the home that he'd had there, went up in flames. And what we have here in Olivenhain is something similar to that. A wildfire could start in Rancho Santa Fe and rip through Olivenhain and hit everything in that area. And this project is just providing more combustible material to help that wildfire. And at the same time, it's providing homes for people who may not be able to get out. And if there's a fire that goes through and injures people, the city is going to be liable for a whole lot. We're going to have a lot of lawyers really chasing ambulances here. I don't think we want to create that kind of risk for our city. This project is just too big and there's no escape from there. So I'd like to suggest that you at least study the fire impact further, because it's kind of been glossed over by the application in a hurry to get something going. As the project currently is proposed, it's an improvement on the previous proposal, but still there's a fire danger coming down from Rancho Santa Fe on a Santa Ana year. That's at least 1 year out of 10, you're likely to have a fire ripping through there, burning parts of Olivenhain, throwing embers into buildings, creating a horrible traffic jam with horse trailers and other cars. And this is just too much risk for the city, because if somebody is injured or killed or loses their belongings for a project that you've approved, the city is the first one to sue for it. So I'd like to suggest that we study the fire risk further before approving this project. Thank you.
Next speaker is Apple.
I'd like to suggest that we study the fire risk further before approving this project. Thank you.
Next speaker is Apple. Apple. It just seems to be on a repeat. Next speaker is Apple. Okay, that just seems to be a recording. So next speaker is MT.
MT, you'll have to accept when I promote you to panelist.
Sorry, can I?
We can hear you now.
Okay, good. Thank you. Good evening. Longtime resident of Liebenheim. Just a short message. I'm conflicted with, I don't understand, mayor, city council members, nor any proponents of this destructive blemish that Goodson wants to build can honestly claim anything about any concern regarding public safety, while at the same time ignoring the current treacherous traffic issue that exists along southbound Encinitas Boulevard near McCain Street Point, near the intersection with Manchester, which will only be exacerbated with this project. Nor can any proponents of this project claim concern for public safety, while at the same time claiming anything about a water shortage, limiting water use, while also increasing our water costs. There are deep pockets in Liebenheim and the surrounding areas, and perhaps Goodson will win eventually. But the concerned residents of our community, which consists of many of us, will continue to do all we can to make it painful and costly for Goodson to build this blemish. Interest rates will continue to go up, and this project will cost more to build. It isn't too late to kill this project, and the entirety of Liebenheim residents and others will support the city council and city council members and mayor. Thank you.
Next speaker is Chris Blay. And if anyone else wants to speak on this item before we close public comment, please raise your hand now.
Hi, my name is Chris Blay. Thank you all for allowing me to speak tonight. My wife has been an educator in this community for 9 years. And as such, my family decided to move to Liebenheim 6 months ago on Rancho Santa Fe Road. In this short 6 months, we have experienced the stable fire next to the road school, the corner adjacent to this project, a downed tree against our private road requiring 2 hours of work to clear the road before we could get out, and an accident on Del Dios Highway this past weekend, which we sat in 1 hour of traffic before we decided to turn around. In the event of a fire, a lot of those options in time would not have been attainable. Fire is a clear and present danger in our community. The infrastructure just does not allow for sufficient egress in the event of a Santa Ana fire. In one of my college political science classes, my professor's first remarks were that all politics are local. I implore you to make a positive mark on your legacy. Stand up for what those that elected you want and desire. Stand up to Sacramento. Stand up for Encinitas, and stand up for Liebenheim, please. Thank you.
Next speaker, we're going to try Apple again. Apple.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Except I'm not Apple, but I'll speak for Apple. My name is Holly Mannion. It's not Apple. Oh, but that's the computer I'm on. Okay. All right. Well, good evening, Mayor Blakespear and City Council members. My name is Holly Mannion from Rancho Santa Fe. I represent the concerned citizens of Rancho Santa Fe. And the concerned citizens oppose the Goodson 250-unit apartment complex based on its serious threats to the public safety of our residents during a future wildfire evacuation. While it is important to provide affordable housing, California must also protect communities from our increasing large and intense wildfires. The Liebenheim Encinitas Weber report found that Santa Ana-driven wildfires in the area may reach the intersection of Rancho Santa Fe Road and Encinitas Boulevard in as little as 1 hour after ignition, long before residents from Olivenheim, Rancho Santa Fe, and neighboring communities may safely evacuate. Weber concluded that when flames overrun Rancho Santa Fe Road and areas of Olivenheim, there is a strong possibility that a large number of residents will receive severe injuries, up to and including death, from fire entrapments on evacuation routes impacted by the project site's increased vehicle load. This conclusion was reached without accounting for hundreds of Rancho Santa Fe cars and horse trailers that would attempt to share Encinitas evacuation routes. Our vehicles would have to compete with an additional 580 Goodson cars, in addition to Olivenheim vehicles on the same highly congested routes. This situation could well end up like the Paradise Fire of 2018. Almost 90 citizens were burned to death, mostly incinerated. The firefighters had no time to carry out their pre-designed evacuation plans as people panicked and evacuation routes were gridlocked. It was hell on earth. We implore the City Council to delay a vote on this project until we have a multi-jurisdictional study that evaluates impacts of the Goodson apartments on public safety in Rancho Santa Fe and neighboring communities that share your wildfire evacuation routes. Thank you.
Next speaker is Laurel Lamari.
Okay, Laurel Lemarier, if you can hear me, wave.
Yes, we can.
Okay, and I'll start my video. There you go. I am a long-term member of San Diego Planning Group, and I'm a director of the Rancho Santa Fe Association. You've heard from both the Planning Group and the Association our positions against this project, and even in its current form. Encinitas does not exist in a bubble. You guys come through us, we come through you for everything, shopping, and especially for escape during wildfire. I had to escape the Witch Creek fire with the horse trailer, and we went up Encinitas Boulevard. If I was told we had to go along Manchester, which would be driving along the Escondido Creek, we would all be in danger. If you recall the fire that started in Olivenheim and burned through parts of Carlsbad, that happened very fast. I know people lost their homes along there. If it starts anywhere along either the San Diego River or coming between us on Escondido Creek, we're all sunk. So I'm just want you to consider, we did go lobby with Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remmer last week, and she is willing to commit some funds to studying a wildfire study for the whole entire area, because like I said, you don't exist in a bubble, neither do we. So I implore you not to approve this project at this time. Thank you.
Next speaker is Brian.
All right, good evening. Thanks for the time. Brian Lucas, Encinitas resident. Obviously, to any traditional politician who is out to take care of his constituents, his or her constituents, what we're hearing tonight should be enough to bend your decision to not approve this project. I'm not going to belabor the points. Other than the traffic one, sounds like McCain Alley gets a street light, but the two entry exit points on Rancho Santa Fe do not. So just let your imagination wander on how that's going to look with 300 additional cars trying to get on and off Santa Fe Road and into that project. Obviously, the safety issues are incredible, but I think The frustration, I feel, is what Juliana earlier mentioned, and that is the politicians and our current state of politics, not only in Encinitas, but in California and nationwide, quite frankly. Politicians, it seems like, do not want to take care of the people that they were voted in to protect. This is obvious. And if you guys go through with this project, congratulations. You guys would raise the low-income housing requirement, or at least this project would go from 2.9% of what we're supposed to have to 3.6% of what we're supposed to have per the California law. So if you guys go through with this tonight, congratulations. I will say in closing that everyone knows why the council is for this, and that is the underbelly of current politics, which is money and the influence that money has on people that hold political positions. And unfortunately, that's something that's a tidal wave that's going to be very difficult to reverse. But we're seeing it at the local level, we're seeing it at the state level, and we're seeing it at the national level. And it's very apparent that nobody on this council lives in that area, because if they did, they would realize just how crazy this project would be in that particular spot. So as you can tell, I am against this. And hopefully the council votes accordingly. Thank you.
Next speaker is Vern Shaw. And last call, if you want to speak on this item, please raise your hand.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm Vern Scholl. My family and I moved to Solana Beach in 1950. I was the first 7th grade class at Earl Warren, graduated from San Diego High School, built a house in 1973 in Olevenheim. I've lived in Encinitas, actually in Lucadia for the last 40 years. I was formerly the attorney for Susan Rappaport Ryan, who spoke to you earlier. If that traffic sign that was up for her talk and or the one that Richard Boyer had, it might be helpful to take a look. But in any case, I want to address the traffic with regard to that. No traffic study was made with regard to the current usage. 2 or 3 times a day, there's a lot of traffic being generated on people dropping their kids off and picking them up at school. There's a proposal to put a traffic light on Encinitas Boulevard, which would service McCain Lane, this little 28-foot lane that you're going to use for the entire project, which is ludicrous, by not utilizing Rancho Santa Fe Road. But I would assume that you're going to eliminate any left-hand turns 60, 80 feet beyond that traffic light in order to turn left into her school project, which would cause the people going east on Encinitas Boulevard and wanting to go to the school would have to go down to Manchester, Rancho Santa Fe intersection and do a U-turn and come up in order to go into the school. You would have people coming in there with like 100 or more cars in a very short period of time, several times a day, and they're going to get stacked up trying to wait to get in and drop their kids off. That's going to cause traffic to back right into Rancho Santa Fe Road, Manchester intersection on the thing. That driveway is a joint driveway with the property that's just to the east of the school that has their own ingress and egress usage in that spot for the house in front and an office building in the back. This thing definitely needs to have a traffic study done with regard to ingress and egress of McCain Lane, including the school. It's not going to work as it's proposed. So I can't imagine any logical person would use a little teeny panhandle to service a big project like that when you've got, I don't know how many feet there are on Rancho Santa Fe Road, but you've got to do something with the traffic study. It doesn't work. Thank you very much.
Encinitas? Next speaker is We Vote Encinitas.
Yes, hello.
We can hear you.
Hopefully you can hear me. Randy, I know you personally, and I know that you are actually a really good guy, but this is a really bad project. So I ask that you reconsider based on everything you heard today about all the lives that will be put at risk if this project continues. I know you care about someone we know, and please do the right thing. As far as the city council members go, all politics are local, as we've heard many times tonight, and we will keep it that way. But for those of you that have aspirations for higher state positions, such as senator, you may want to tread lightly on this, because you're going to have a firestorm of people, pun intended, that will be looking to ensure that you are not the next state senator. I mean, you really should think twice before you build this or allow this to be approved, because this may be the downfall of your Senate run. And as well as all the other city council members, I will be happy to support your opponents any way I can, financially, with time, standing on the sidewalk, holding up signs. And I think we have a lot of people here tonight that would do the same. So do the right thing. Follow your fiduciary responsibility to your community. Thank you.
Mayor, that does conclude speakers on this item.
Okay, thank you. The next thing is 5 minutes of rebuttal by the applicant.
Madam Mayor and council, staff, this is Randy Goodson. I again appreciate you taking the time to consider our amended application. All of the opposition comments that have been made tonight that we've just listened to have been reviewed and rejected by both staff and the Attorney General. I have no further comments, and I really urge the council to approve this amended application. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. And I think now I close the public hearing and then we go to deliberation. I'll ask our city attorney to confirm that process.
That is correct. You close the public comment portion of the public hearing and bring it back to city council for deliberation.
Okay. Okay. Well, I appreciate the public comments, and this has been a long and tortuous process. I think that what I'd like to do is I'd actually like to read one of the emails we received, which was from someone whose name is Lauren Thompson, and she expresses some of the feelings I have about this project. And so I wanted to just read it out because there are several emails that offer a different perspective. So she says, "Dear council members, many of the complaints I've heard about the Goodson project relate to the fact that it is, quote, high density. I would argue that denser housing developments are a good thing. Density helps to alleviate our existing housing shortage and is an important part of the fight against climate change. The restrictive zoning that allows for only low density housing has contributed heavily to the shortage of housing in our community. This housing shortage drives up the price of housing, creating an affordability crisis. Allowing for increased density in this project and in projects to come will alleviate some of the supply pressure. This is one important part of a solution that will allow people to afford to live where they work. Density is also an important part of the fight against climate change. In denser cities, people live closer to where they need to go for work, medical care, school, etc., reducing vehicle miles driven and improving the viability of public transit. I would like to express my support for the Goodson project. I believe that Encinitas urgently needs more housing, both affordable and market rate, and that this project is a good step towards filling that need. I am pleased that this revised version of the plan has increased the number of affordable units to 20% of the total number of units, as well as incorporating units for very low as well as low income residents. Best, Lauren Thompson. And I'll just make my comments first, since I don't see my colleagues with their hands up. So, you know, I understand that it is always very difficult to go against what the community that's participating seems to express. And there are people who spoke tonight who are obviously speaking from a true and heartfelt place of fear about fire, from a sense of concern about their quality of life going down from traffic, about their children and their animals and their homes, which is the most dear thing to all of us. I think, you know, when I evaluate these projects, I do go and look to the experts, and I trust what our fire department said and our traffic engineer said, and also the reality that there's nowhere where we would put a 250 unit apartment complex in the city where we would not have people saying it's going to impact their traffic and their ability to get out in the event of an emergency. And, you know, I think the reality is Encinitas Boulevard is one of the most major streets in the entire city. And we have talked extensively about that. This is on the corner of that street. It is not buried at the back of Lone Jack Road. And also, importantly, it is on the housing element update. So like this council, previous council, had a very difficult time that was painful, so painful, to come up with 15 sites to provide for needed housing in our community. And this was the only site in Oliebenhain. And this was a site that was fought over quite a bit. I mean, even at the time, there was opposition to nearly every site, but particularly also to this site. But I do believe that, as many people said tonight, all politics is local. All politics is local, but also all solutions are local. So fighting climate change does come down to local decisions. Dealing with the homelessness epidemic and the housing affordability crisis and all of the problems that we face societally really are a collective of our decision making at the local level. And so it is difficult to make decisions that seem to go against what people want. But the reality is, from my perspective, this site has already been designated for housing. We have, as many have mentioned, we have the state attorney general already weighing in on this project. And we should move forward and vote yes on this project to allow for needed housing in our community, and also to recognize that this project is substantially better than it was. You know, I'm grateful for the process that created more affordable units. You know, there are 21 very low income units, and we struggle to get units in the very low income category, and 29 low income units. And the massing has been reduced, the lines, the lighting, the sidewalk. You know, there are a number of improvements that have been made that I'm really happy with in this project. And I recognize that with some it's not popular, but I think it's the right thing to do for the city to avoid the lawsuits and the target on our back from the Attorney General, and the reality that this site has been designated for housing, and housing will eventually be built here. So I will be voting in favor of this tonight, and I welcome the people who will live there, and I think that they will enjoy living there, and it will not be as much of an eyesore as many people fear. I look forward to that happening. So with that, I will call on my colleagues. Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel the concerns of the people who have been expressing their concerns to us over the last year and a half that I've been on the city council. And, but I look at the long arc of history of how this came to be, that this was one of the sites identified on our mandated housing element, and the history of how the use of this property under that has evolved over time. And a few of the presenters from the community mentioned that, how it was originally a senior center and has kind of evolved over time, and it's kind of gone in a direction that I'm not sure was expected. My big concern with this project was every time it seemed to come back to us, it seemed to
be less good to, it seemed to less affect, less respond to what we really want as far as a housing development that is responsive to the character and responsive to the context. And so when we denied this at the most recent hearing, it seemed like there was a tipping point. Maybe that's how I'd like to express it, where there was an opportunity to for this to take a turn in the other direction, to become a better project and a better fit for the community. And I'm happy that it's gone that direction. I was concerned with this prior to this point. I was concerned that it was not responsive enough to the community. It was too many units. It wasn't enough affordable housing. It was too much mass and too overbearing in the community. And the changes that have been made associated with this presentation today go a good distance to notch that back and be more responsive. I know that John Bilsell called me out as the landscape architect on the council. And I look at this in regards to a designer who looks at how things are well integrated into the community. He mentioned that there might be some retaining walls, and I don't know that I need clarification on this right now, but it's after I've looked at the plans, and I'm pretty sure those are vegetated and landscape slopes and not retaining walls. So I've evaluated it very closely. I believe that the way that it's designed now, and with the commitments that are being made as a part of the, I think they're called design standards, are going to be what the community will feel has responded to some of their concerns. So the reduction, there could have been 309, or I think it's 308 units based on the density bonus on this property, but this proposal today is 250. And the reduction of 1 story around the east edge and on the northwest corner, reduction by 1 story, I think is really significant. I think the reduction in the number of units is going to be a positive to the amount of traffic. The fewer units, the less traffic. I hear my community tell me that they do like the smaller units. Now, I know it's not going to be for everyone, but there are a range of types of units from 1 to 2 to 3 bedroom. And some of these units are smaller in studios, but I hear that from the people who talk to me about what they're looking for in our community, they're happy to have smaller units, and especially when it's affordable. There's a lot of things here that are better, and I like them. I want to call out the lights. I think our head of planning, Anna, was mentioning that it might not have been articulated too well yet, but I understand, and I got clarification that the lights will be all shielded and will not be visible from surrounding residences. And so I'm really happy. I think that's a really important improvement. It may seem small to some people, but I think the people who are living nearby would find that very important. And the sidewalk along Rancho Santa Fe Road and the connection into the community there is also very important for safety. So I think I want to hear what my other colleagues are going to say. I just wanted to express that I feel that this is a more positive response to what's needed in this area, given that there will be housing on this parcel, and I like what I've seen today.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hensy.
Thank you. So one question I have, I think it is directed for our planning staff on our Roy, but the sidewalk is going to be placed in the frontage there, and I'm hopeful that when this project actually is constructed, that there'll be internal pathways for the pedestrians and the residents of this apartment complex to be able to reach that sidewalk internally, and not have to go all the way down McCain Lane and make that turn if they're going to go to school, for example. So is that something that will be possible for us to ensure?
When we were looking at the project, we did look at providing access from Rancho Santa Fe Road and as well as McCain Lane. They were able to achieve an ADA accessible route from McCain Lane to a public roadway, but we would need to assess whether or not an ADA accessible path of travel could be made on Rancho Santa Fe Road.
Okay, thank you. I hope that we can make every effort to work with Mr. Goodson to make sure that that's possible, because I think that would be a big quality of life improvement for the residents and probably eliminate a lot of the close trips that are needed from the residents in the building. But that's my main question that I'm left with after all of this. And I'll just go ahead and give a few comments. For everybody who participated in this long and really painful process, specifically the residents of Olivenhain and Encinitas residents for responsible development, you are passionate defenders of your community. And I think that your involvement throughout this whole process has made this project a much better project than it was that came before us last fall. There's no doubt that the concerns you voiced related to traffic and evacuation timelines and fire safety, proximity to the high fire severity zone, those are all your deeply felt and authentic concerns. And we have had our fire professionals respond to those concerns and give us their confidence that they are able to mitigate any impacts that this project will have. And they have there's not been any more information given to us since the studies have been conducted that there's a reason to be concerned. So I validate your participation and your passion and everything that you've added to this project and to the city's ability to get a handle on what the impacts will be. That being said, as I voiced in previous meetings, this site was selected for high density based on the intent of previous councils to balance the impacts of high density development between our 5 communities in Encinitas. And of all the places that this could be sited in the community of Olivenhain, this is the one that's the least impactful. When you stand on the corner here of Rancho Santa Fe Road in Manchester, this is not the heart of the community with a rural feel. This is a part of the community that has a lot of traffic already. There's a lot of businesses, there are schools, there are places where people go to work. And to me, this is an appropriate location for the density that we're considering. I also believe that this project is significantly improved since we saw it last. And I won't go into all those details because my colleagues have done a great job of enumerating those. But whether or not you agree with the state of California's approach here to address some of the bigger issues that we're facing of homelessness and income inequality and just this generational wealth gap that we're seeing between members of a certain generation to achieve homeownership and members of younger generations to be cut out of that, we at the city level don't have a lot of control over those decisions. And so the bigger context that we have to take into concern when considering this project is that we have new case law in the example of Bankers Hill 150 versus the city of San Diego that shows us we would not be successful if we continue to litigate this project. We have threats from HCD threatening to revoke our housing element. We have a warning from the AG's office that would mean significant repercussions for our failure to approve this project. And so when we have to weigh what is actually at stake here, it's these high costs that come from our city's revenue that would be devoted to paying for losing lawsuits rather than doing all of the things that we know we need to do, which is improve the circulation on Rancho Santa Fe Road and provide our fire department with the resources they need to be able to do their best job in serving our existing and our future residents. So really for me, those are the issues that we have to weigh. And it makes sense to me that we approve this project tonight. So the prudent option is to, and I'll go ahead and make a motion, to grant Randy Goodson's appeal and to adopt the attached draft city council resolution, which is number 2022-70, and to approve the amended design review permit and density bonus requests. And I know that we have, oh, Barbara, did you pop in for a comment?
Sorry, we had one suggestion for one change to make in the resolution that was before you. You heard a fair amount of testimony from people who said, well, we've, presented substantial evidence that there are some safety issues. So what we're suggesting changing that finding to would be the third finding under the design review. Findings is to say instead that the project does not violate any adopted objective standards for health, safety, or general welfare of the community, which really describes better the restrictions you're under, and then say that all utilities and services are in place to serve the project. So if you would be comfortable making that amendment to your motion, that's what we'd recommend.
Yeah, I will make that amendment. And then the rest of the sentence to approve the amended design review permit and the density bonus requests, and include the revision that Barbara suggested on the third finding in the resolution above. And those are my comments, and I will turn it over to my colleagues.
Okay, thank you. I'll second your motion. And I see Councilmember Mosca, your hand. Or wait, let's say, Anna, did you want to jump in right here before?
Thank you so much. Yes, we did in our presentation make a recommendation for an added condition of approval. And I just wanted to see council's position on that. In regards to the lighting.
Can you clarify that this has been with the applicant's position on that proposal? Or Roy, do you want to jump in there?
Yes, the applicant is in agreement to the condition, the added condition.
So the added condition would be added to the motion? Is that what would happen?
Yes, the condition was not included in the draft resolution that was presented to the council. So our recommendation is to include that as part of the motion, to incorporate that new added condition SB 15 to the resolution.
Okay, that was the one you presented with the lighting is going to be shaded in that part, right? Yeah. That's okay. I approve that as the seconder, but Councilmember Hinsey is the motion maker. Do you approve that? Maybe we'll come back to her. So Councilmember Mosca.
Thank you. Thank you to all those who have submitted written comments and to those who spoke tonight and at previous hearings on this project. In preparation for today's hearing, I've carefully reviewed all documents and I've listened attentively to all public comments. I've also had an opportunity to meet with our city staff and our attorneys, and not only our city attorney now, prior city attorneys, and all the other attorneys, special counsel, Barbara, Dolores, and all the other counsels that we've had helping us on this project for the last several years. And I've spent hours with them in council and getting my questions answered. And so thank you to city staff and all the time that you've put in and given me answers to my questions. This project presents the city council with a very difficult decision. We want and need more true affordable housing, and we want to stay in compliance with state and federal law, but we don't want the additional community impacts that come with more housing units. I'd like you to know that I'm fully aware of the gravity of the decision before the city council, especially as someone who lives down the road and is invested in the community of Liebenheim and has spent years on the city council working to improve the quality of life in our city. Please know that throughout the process, I've tried my best to be sensitive to all points and to be thoughtful in my examination of the facts, the law to be applied, and the various interests to be balanced. As you know, this project is back before the city council after it was denied nearly 7 months ago. The denial of this project was primarily based on the city's belief that waivers requested by the applicant appellant were not needed. Therefore, the project as presented was not consistent with the law. The city's conclusion was based on the advice of experts and legal counsel. After the project denial, several events occurred that moved the city council to alter its course of action and then to decide to entertain some settlement discussions with the applicant appellant. And they are, first, the applicant and appellant filed a lawsuit against the city, stating, among other things, the city wrongly denied the project. While the city believed at the time that its actions were consistent with the law, a subsequent court case came out of San Diego, which gave greater credence to the applicant appellant's waiver argument and significantly decreased the city's chance of success in the courts. Second, the city received a letter from the California Department of Housing and Community Development, making it clear that they believe that the denial of the applicant and appellant's project is inconsistent with our housing element and state housing law. Furthermore, the state agency said that they would revoke our certified housing element if we did not change our decision. The city receives many benefits from its status as a city with a certified housing element, and there are serious financial and legal consequences for not having a certified housing element. And it was only a few years ago when I came onto the city council that we actually were living under those consequences of not having a certified housing element. Last, the Office of the California Attorney General sent a letter to the city not that long ago stating that the city's denial of the applicant appellant's project amounted to a violation of state law, and then his office would pursue legal avenues against the city if we did not approve the applicant appellant's project. While my view of this project has not changed, I believe the parties have crafted a settlement agreement that is in the city's best interest. More specifically, I'd like to take a moment to highlight several items contained in the settlement agreement that led me to the opinion that it is in the best interest of the city to accept this settlement agreement. There are more deed-restricted affordable housing units for people such as firefighters, police officers, teachers, artists, students, seniors, and people who are working in our community but currently cannot afford to live in our community. This project will produce 50 deed-restricted affordable housing units, more units than we've produced in the last several years. Importantly, the housing units will not be isolated on any one floor of this apartment building. At the same time, the overall housing unit count for this project went from 272 units to 250 housing units. And under state density bonus law, you heard a second ago from one of my colleagues that they could actually build up to 308 under state density bonus law. The massing and the building height nearest to the existing residents were reduced. The settlement agreement on the table represents a global resolution of the applicant appellant's legal action and claims against the city. The settlement agreement contains an indemnification clause by which the applicant appellant promises to defend the city against further claims growing out of this project. This settlement agreement represents a resolution of a dispute with the California Department of Housing and Community Development over our compliance with our own housing element and eliminates a possibility of revocation of our city's housing element. Also, the settlement agreement will resolve all possible claims by the Office of the California Attorney General for violation of state housing laws. Let me conclude by saying that I fully understand that there are a lot of folks out there that will not agree with me on this matter, and we heard from some tonight. While we may disagree, please know that my heart is always with our community and that I've always acted in what I believe is in the best interest of the city that I love and that my family and I are lucky enough to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Muska. Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Kranz.
Thank you. I have a question for Randy Goodson, and I'd really appreciate if you could put his camera on and so I could ask him a question. While I'm waiting for that, I would ask the city attorney if he would please speak to the issue that was raised regarding the process that we've used in this settlement agreement to hear this amended application directly on the by the city council instead of going to the planning commission first.
Thank you, Councilmember Kranz. The city council has the authority to hear this matter.
So you disagree that there are any issues, legal issues with us hearing this directly?
Councilmember Kranz, arguments can always be made, but I disagree with just about everything that was put in EERD's attorney's letter to the city, which was received by the city about 4 or 5 hours ago.
Okay. And let's see, is
He's on, I see him.
Mr. Goodson.
I wonder what
Excellent.
wave.
Okay, hey, so going back a little bit on the history here. 2016, we had an election, and on that ballot here in the city, there was a Measure U, and your parcels were on a part of that, and that measure passed. I had been a part of the council that worked to get that housing element update on the ballot as part of a settlement agreement due to the fact that we had been sued by a couple parties for not having a housing element that was in compliance with the law. And so in 2017, we put together a housing element task force, and the council, recommitted to coming up with another housing element update to put on the ballot. And one of the things that was required that was kind of new was the HCD required that we have letters from all the parcel owners, property owners, indicating their willingness to develop. And so you submitted this letter here that says your ownership, and then that you will have 198 affordable senior citizen apartments built if the property is zoned consistent with the city's 2016 housing element. Your letter goes on to state that to confirm per the above, and as we have represented the city staff many times in the past, we have an agreement to develop our properties together and are focusing on the construction of an apartment community for senior citizens, providing our senior citizens a classy place to retire with dignity, amenities, and services is good for the Encinitas community in many ways, including reduces the demand on city services, provides affordable housing to our longest residents, allows our senior citizens and grandparents to remain in their community with their loved ones and support network as they need us most, provides more local affordable housing when the older homes vacated become available to new families, and lastly, satisfies the laws requiring the provision of housing. And I believe that's your signature right there. And I'm wondering, Mr. Goodson, why it is that your project wasn't proposed as you committed to in this letter.
Thank you very much for your question, Vice Mayor. There's a couple of answers to your question. First of all, I initially proposed a couple commercial buildings and 16 units back in 2006. And progressively from 2006 forward, I came forward with different alternatives. All of them faced immense opposition from the Livenheim community and then from the city council, to the point where, while I had submitted applications, I withdrew them all. And all of those applications leading up to 2015 were for less than 100 units. And now here we are in 2022, and I appreciate you very much reading that letter from 2017. If it could go back up on the screen, the paragraph that you read regarding senior housing, the only difference is that this project is not restricted to only seniors. This project will accommodate seniors, and I expect that a significant proportion of the residents of this community will be seniors. And we will achieve all of these things that are described here in this letter. It seems that your opposition is to that the unit numbers have changed. And that's really a factor of state law and what happens with the times when you have a perfectly located site, as your colleagues have discussed. This is a perfectly located site to put density. Density is really important to help address so many challenges we have in our community, including addressing having smart transit and having the ability to reduce vehicle miles traveled. This project is perfectly located. The laws have changed, and the densities as a result change. But nonetheless, this project will accommodate many, many senior citizens. It is not restricted. And a lot of market research has recently shown that senior citizens don't want to live only among senior citizens. They want to, when they transition out of their large houses in Olivenhain or other parts of Encinitas, they want to live among a diverse community. And so the only distinction is that the project is not restricted to only senior citizens. I think it's better for the community, and I hope that you agree, but I understand if you don't. I think if you were to take a poll of the potential residents here, I think that you'll find that that the majority of people prefer to have a community that is not limited to only certain elements of the community. And it will reduce the demand on city services. It will provide affordable housing to our longest residents and to our newer residents, the residents that have graduated high school and perhaps they're not going to go away to college, or they go away to college and they want to come back to where they grew up. So, perhaps we disagree, but I believe wholeheartedly that this application is provides a tremendous service to the community, and the project will be really, really well received and benefit all aspects of the community, and particularly seniors.
Well, I'm not surprised to hear you say that, but I think one of the things that we see in polling nowadays, and we heard on several comments here tonight, is that people are really having a hard time trusting elected officials. So when you talk about polling, I subject myself to the voters, and they say, why is it that this project grew to be such a monstrosity? And the reality is that your parcels were added to the housing element because of the commitment that you made in this letter. And so, the reality is we had another parcel property owner that made a commitment to limit the number of units that he built as well. And he lived up to that commitment, and we don't see that happening here. I get that you have, state law, density bonus, this, that, and the other, but I saw your signature there. The commitment that you made was for a senior project, which in fact is lower impact. So, that's probably the most challenging part of this, is that while I hear what you're saying about how senior residents prefer to have mixed age groups, I get that. The reality is that the commitment was for a senior project. And it's really a shame to me that HCD is perfectly willing to require this letter and then perfectly willing to ignore the commitment that was made to the community in the letter. So it's always been really frustrating to have to consider this project when the reason it's on the housing element is related to that. I appreciate you giving your response.
Thank you very much.
At the same time, I agree with Councilmember Mosca and others who have stated very clearly that our efforts in denying the waiver and, with under threat of litigation, Mr. Goodson committed, lived up to that promise. And in fact, we were sued. And the Bankers Hill appeals court decision out of San Diego really just took away made already very long odds of success on our denial of the waiver just virtually impossible. So the reality is that the responsible thing to do for the city, for the taxpayers of this city, is to comply with the law. We've got a lot of we got the AG's attention, we've got HCD's attention. The impacts of denying this project would be very significant. I could certainly lodge a protest vote for having been promised one thing and given another. But the reality is that the responsible thing to do in this particular case, I believe, is to vote to approve this project.
Okay, well, thank you for everybody's very thoughtful comments. I think we have a motion, and I think Kelly, Councilmember Hinsey, there was a modification to include the light requirement, and I wanted to make sure you approve that since it's your motion.
Yes, I approve that.
Okay. Okay, so I don't know if Tarquin or the city clerk wants to reread the motion or if we feel comfortable with it, but otherwise we should move forward and vote.
The motion that I had was to adopt City Council Resolution 2022-70 to grant the appeal and to approve the amended design review permit and density bonus requests with the following amendments. Add the change the third finding as read by Barbara Couts, and then to add the additional condition to the resolution that was outlined in the staff report, staff presentation.
Okay, City Attorney, is that an adequate rereading of the motion? We can't hear you.
Yes, correct.
Yes, okay. Great, well then let's go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Hensy.
Yes.
Councilmember Kranz.
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca.
Yes.
And Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you, everybody. With that, we have no more agenda items. And so we will go to council member reports pursuant to AB 1234. Does anybody have any they'd like to share?
I did want to share some good news. Today we got final word that all of our accounts for San Diego Community Power have been launched and are now part of San Diego Community Power. So we are now at 770,000 customer accounts in our 5-member agencies. Well, 7 as of next year when we launch the unincorporated parts of the county and national city. And so we are now the second largest community choice energy in the state of California. And we are providing a choice for people in our region for the first time ever, and providing them with clean, renewable energy at a competitive price. And we're fully launched now. So we're no longer a fledgling organization that is kind of, but we're fully operational now. Yeah, absolutely. And we're now, yeah, it's extraordinarily exciting. So we had a press conference today and all of our stakeholders came together, and we also had a lot of our Power 100 champions. And these are cities like the city of Encinitas that stepped up and moved up to 100%, and a lot of other businesses that have stepped up. And the San Diego International Airport was one of our first Power 100 champions. Then came Illumina, then came the San Diego Padres and Flock Freight here in the city of Encinitas. A lot of businesses are moving up to 100 and being inspired by the airport authority. Thank you, Mayor Blakespear, for being on the board there and helping us move that up to 100. And the San Diego Padres, I think, have been incredible partner for us and incredibly inspirational to folks. And so very thankful to all of our partners. And we're now talking about our community programming and designing programs that are tailored to each of our member agencies and making sure that we're meeting the demands in each of our member agencies and that we're not leaving anyone behind in this energy transition. So just very excited that we're now fully launched and fully operational and are looking forward to the future when we're helping our entire region move to clean, renewable energy. Thank you.
Well, that's great. It's really exciting. Congratulations on all the successes there. I wanted to also share this last weekend we had a press conference that Sandag did in the city of Encinitas, and it was to cut the ribbon on the tens of millions of dollars of new improvements in the city that and I'll describe the project so everyone remembers them. But basically the most impactful one is the pedestrian and bike bridge that's underneath the new Caltrans freeway that goes over the San Elijo Lagoon. So I think 3 of you were there at the press conference, and there were hundreds of people there. And basically there's a path that goes all the way to Solana Beach, and then hanging suspended beneath the freeway bridge over the San Elijo Lagoon is this bike ped path. And it has this amazing art on the side, like this undulating wave pattern that it's just the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I was like beside myself with enthusiasm about this. This is like once in a generation type of improvements that our state, this is the Build NCC project, state money, local money, county money, and it's associated with widening the freeway and restoring the health of the lagoon, and also double tracking the railroad. And these bike and ped improvements are just so in line with all of our other goals. And the fact that they've been built in our city and make these connections that didn't exist before is just so exciting. And so then after you cross the bridge coming from Solana Beach heading north, you can jump on a path that's fully separated and goes alongside the freeway. And there's even the overlook where at Manchester, where if you're a car, you would pull off and look out over the lagoon, and there's a beautiful rock garden and this seating that's also really lovely designed. And then you continue north and you can make your way all the way to Birmingham on a trail. And there's also a part that goes through the San Elijo wastewater facility. And it just really shows the collaboration with different agencies that have different missions coming together to make things better. And our city is the big beneficiary of that. So this project has been in the works for 20 years, and it was a vision that combined environmental improvements with transportation improvements. And it's just, we've really hit it out of the park, and I'm totally thrilled by it. So I wanted to just explain and share all of that with you and with the community, and also to thank the city staff, who I'm sure worked very hard on this for many years to make sure that everything met our standards and was done properly too. So thank you to the city staff's work for that. So anyone else want to share an AB 1234 report?
I'll give a quick update. So this bluff stabilization project taking place. Can you hear me?
At Beacon?
I'm having a little lag. Sorry about that. Am I
No,
back on track?
You, Kelly.
No, the bluff stabilization. Oh, good. The bluff stabilization in Del Mar along the rail right away went to the Coastal Commission today, and it included some mitigation to improve beach access because the seawalls do limit access. And it was approved, and they will be seawalls that are temporary, and they will be removed after a certain amount of time. And one crossing will be achieved, and a portion of a rail trail type thing will be implemented as well as part of the Coastal Commission's conditions of approval.
Okay.
And
thank you for that.
And it turns out that that is going to be done at no cost to Del Mar or NCTD, as I understand the staff report from the Coastal Commission. So it seems to me that perhaps we should do a little bit more with Sandag, that if they're going to pay for Del Mar's coastal access and safe crossings and so on and so forth, that we should be asking Sandag to do the same thing for the city of Encinitas.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious about NCTD. Doesn't seem like it supported these improvements, these transportation improvements. Do you? I know Kelly, you're on the board now. Do you know if NCTD's changed its position on that?
That was NCTD's position, and in my reading of it, it's because they won't be paying for it, and so they want to preempt this Coastal Commission ability to impose conditions because the State Transportation Board hasn't weighed in on the big decision yet about fencing. And so I don't think NC opposed to those. I think it's just a matter of being clear on who's paying for it, and that the funding is not yet allocated.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, Sandag is the one who's committing to build it, and we have not reallocated funds for this brand new project away from other projects, or really talked about this at the board level at all. So, you know, it's a bit of a mystery to me how that actually happens, that Sandag basically commits to the Coastal Commission to make these improvements they require over NCTD's objection without the board talking about it. So we'll see. Joe's smiling. Yes. So is Pam and Joy. Okay. Anyone else? Pam, did you pop on because you have a city manager report?
No, I was blissfully not having to say anything, just really listened, and it was a great meeting tonight. Appreciate all of the hard work of everyone.
Yes, it was. Okay, thank you. City attorney or city clerk report?
No report.
Okay, we still have an opening on the traffic commission, right?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And that application period closes on Thursday, the 16th at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
And I do have a question for the city manager.
Yes.
I'm being asked quite a bit about the status of beacons. Will there be an agenda item to discuss beacons anytime soon?
Yes, we will be bringing an agenda item on the 22nd of June to give an update to the community. Our geotechnical engineers are working very hard to bring forth some information, and we'll be sharing that with the council and the community on the 22nd.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tarquin, anything?
No, Madam Mayor, I have no report this evening.
Okay. Okay, well, with that, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.